The sound of shattering glass echoed through our kitchen, followed by an eerie silence that seemed to last forever. I stood there, frozen, staring at the remains of what used to be our wedding china scattered across the hardwood floor. The pot roast I'd spent hours preparing lay in ruins among the ceramic shards, a fitting metaphor for my marriage. My name is Clara, and this was the moment I realized my husband Wyatt had become a stranger. Jesus Christ, Clara! Wyatt's voice cut through the silence. That was my mother's china. Do you have any idea how much that set was worth? I watched him pace, his perfectly pressed suit somehow untouched by the mess at our feet. The same suit he'd been wearing more and more lately, coming home later and later each night. The handle was loose, I said quietly, though we both knew that wasn't the whole truth. My hands had been shaking when I lifted the dish, just like they'd been shaking all week since I'd found that email on his laptop. Maybe if you spent more time practicing basic skills instead of snooping through my things, we wouldn't be having these accidents. His words dripped with condescension, but it was the slight smirk that made my stomach turn. I wasn't snooping, I lied, matching his tone. The email was right there when I was checking our flight details for your mother's birthday dinner. Wyatt's face twitched. What email? The one about the merger. I kept my voice steady, watching his reaction. The one where you discussed selling Carter Innovations, my former company, right out from under Leo. He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. You're being paranoid, Clara. Business is complicated. You wouldn't understand. It's been, 2 years since you've worked? 3, I corrected, feeling the familiar sting of his reminder. Since you convinced me to quit and focus on our future. Wyatt stepped carefully around the mess, straightening his tie. I have a late meeting. Clean this up before my mother comes over tomorrow. And Clara? He paused at the doorway. Stay out of my emails. Trust goes both ways in a marriage. The front door closed with a soft click that felt louder than the shattering china. I knelt down and began picking up the pieces, my mind racing. 3 years ago, I was a senior project manager at Carter Innovations. Now I was on my knees, cleaning up a mess while my husband plotted to destroy my mentor's company. My phone buzzed on the counter, a message from Sadie. Drinks tomorrow? Got something you need to hear. I looked at the shattered china, then at my reflection in the window. Something had to change, and maybe Sadie's message was exactly the sign I needed. I spent the morning scrubbing imaginary spots off Evelyn's antique serving dishes, trying to make them sparkle before she arrived for her weekly inspection. The familiar click of her designer heels on our front porch made my shoulders tense even before she walked through the door. Clara, darling. Evelyn's voice carried that artificial sweetness that always made my teeth ache. I brought those cleaning supplies I mentioned, the ones that actually work. I forced a smile, watching her perfectly manicured hands place a bag on my counter. The same counter I'd just spent an hour polishing. Thank you, Evelyn. But I already have. Oh, and these came for you. She pulled out a stack of mail from her purse. They were delivered to our house by mistake. Really, Clara, you should update your resume address. It's been 3 years since you worked at... What was that little company? My heart stopped. Resume? I hadn't sent out any resumes. Carter Innovations, I corrected, trying to keep my voice steady. May I see those? She held them just out of reach. Wyatt mentioned you might be getting restless. But surely you understand that my son needs a proper home to come back to after his long days at the office. Speaking of which, did you hear about his latest deal? The pride in her voice made my stomach turn. I wondered if she knew about the merger, about what Wyatt was planning to do to Leo's company. My phone buzzed. Sadie again. Meeting confirmed for tomorrow. Bringing someone you need to talk to. Clara? Evelyn's sharp tone snapped me back. Are you even listening? I was saying how Wyatt's working so hard to provide for you. The least you could do is show some appreciation. I grabbed a dish towel, twisting it in my hands. Of course. I appreciate everything Wyatt does. Then why are you sending out resumes? I'm not, I said truthfully. I haven't sent any resumes. Evelyn's perfectly lined lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Well, someone has. Using your credentials. Interesting, isn't it? She laid the envelopes on the counter. Responses from 3 major tech companies, all addressed to me. Someone was applying for jobs in my name. But who? And why? I should call Wyatt, Evelyn said, already pulling out her phone. No. I grabbed her wrist, surprising us both. I mean, he's in meetings all day. Important ones. I'll talk to him tonight. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yes, you certainly will. After she left, I stared at the envelopes, my mind racing. Someone was making moves in my name, either trying to help me or set me up. Tomorrow's meeting with Sadie couldn't come soon enough. The cafe where I met Sadie was packed with the lunch crowd, but I spotted her immediately. Same confident smile, same perfectly styled hair. What I didn't expect was who sat beside her. Leo. I nearly dropped my purse. My former boss looked exactly as I remembered him, down to his trademark navy blazer and kind eyes. Hello, Clara. He stood to pull out my chair. Sadie thought it was time we talked. My hands shook as I sat down. About the resumes someone's been sending out in my name? Among other things, Sadie said, sliding a folder across the table. Like how your husband's planning to orchestrate a hostile takeover of Carter Innovations. The world tilted sideways. I'd suspected something from the emails, but hearing it confirmed made my stomach lurch. We've been tracking unusual stock movements, Leo explained quietly. Someone's been quietly buying up shares through shell companies. Then yesterday, we received an anonymous tip about Wyatt's involvement. I didn't know, I whispered. I mean, I saw an email, but... We know you didn't know, Sadie cut in. That's why we're here. Those job applications? That was me. I needed to create a paper trail showing you were looking for work before all this breaks. My phone buzzed Wyatt. I silenced it, my hand trembling. Why would he do this? I asked, but Leo's expression told me he knew exactly why. Your husband's firm is struggling, Clara. They need a big win to stay afloat. Taking over Carter Innovations would save them. And destroy everything I've built. Another text from Wyatt. Where are you? Mother said you're acting strange. We need to talk. He's going to know I met with you, I said, panic rising in my throat. Good. Sadie's voice was steel. Let him know. You're not his prisoner, Clara. You're the key to stopping this. How? Leo leaned forward. You still own shares in Carter Innovations, the ones I gave you before you left. Wyatt doesn't know about them because they're in your maiden name. With those shares and your insider knowledge of his plans. We can stop him, I finished, understanding dawning. But he's my husband. Is he? Sadie asked softly. Or is he the man who manipulated you into giving up your career, isolated you from your friends, and is now trying to destroy your mentor's company? My phone buzzed again. This time a text from Evelyn. Wyatt's worried sick. What kind of wife makes her husband worry like this? I looked at the message, then at Leo and Sadie. 3 years of suppressed anger and resentment crystallized into something harder, colder. Tell me what you need me to do. Walking into our house that evening felt like entering enemy territory. Wyatt stood in the kitchen, his suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a pose that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my skin crawl. Where were you? His voice was carefully controlled. Too controlled. Having lunch with Sadie. Not a lie, just not the whole truth. The folder Leo had given me felt heavy in my purse. Really? Wyatt loosened his tie. Because I had the most interesting call from Thompson and Burke today. Apparently, you interviewed there last week. My breath caught. Sadie's fake paper trail had worked too well. I can explain. Can you explain this too? He slid his laptop across the counter. On the screen was an email from Leo to the Carter Innovations board, dated that afternoon. My name was mentioned. Multiple times. You're spying on Leo's emails? The words came out before I could stop them. Wyatt's laugh was sharp. That's what concerns you. Not the fact that you're conspiring with my competition. Conspiring? I gripped the counter. Like you're conspiring to destroy his company? The silence that followed was deafening. Wyatt's face went through a series of emotions before settling on something dangerous. You have no idea what you're talking about. He stepped closer. Do you know what Leo Carter did to my father? How he stole his clients, drove him out of business? What? Of course you don't. You were too busy being Leo's perfect protege to see who he really is. Wyatt's voice cracked. My father died thinking he was a failure because of that man. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I'd never known how Wyatt's father died. He never talked about it. That doesn't justify. It justifies everything. His fist slammed the counter. I've spent years planning this, Clara. Years. And now you're going to ruin it because you're bored playing housewife. My phone buzzed, Sadie's name flashing on the screen. Wyatt saw it too. Don't answer that. It wasn't a request. I reached for the phone anyway. Wyatt grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. Think very carefully about your next move, he said quietly. There's more at stake here than you realize. I looked at his hand on my wrist, then at his face, this stranger wearing my husband's features. The phone kept buzzing. You're right, I said, meeting his eyes. There is. I pulled away and grabbed my purse, already moving toward the door. Behind me, Wyatt's voice carried a note I'd never heard before: fear. Clara, if you walk out that door. I didn't stay to hear the rest. The January ice made every step treacherous as I hurried toward Sadie's car, parked 2 blocks away. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I left the house. Wyatt, Evelyn, even numbers I didn't recognize. I never saw the patch of black ice. The world tilted sideways, then up, then everything went dark for a moment. When my vision cleared, I was staring at the night sky, my head throbbing and something warm trickling down my face. Oh my God, Clara. Sadie's voice seemed far away. Don't move, I'm calling an ambulance. No hospital. I tried to sit up, but the world spun. Wyatt will. Wyatt will what? A new voice cut through the night. Evelyn stood over me, her silhouette sharp against the streetlights. Find out his wife is sneaking around behind his back? How did you? I followed you. She knelt beside me, her perfume suffocating. I've been watching you for days. Did you really think you could destroy my son's chance at revenge without me noticing? My head throbbed harder. His revenge is wrong. Wrong. Evelyn laughed. Leo Carter destroyed my husband. Now he's trying to take my son too, using you as his puppet. Again. The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Sadie stood between us, phone still in hand. Back off, Evelyn. You don't know what Wyatt's really doing. I know everything. Evelyn's voice turned to steel. Including what's in that folder you're carrying, Clara. The one with all the evidence against Wyatt's takeover plan. My blood went cold. The folder was still in my purse, now lying several feet away on the icy sidewalk. Don't, I warned, but Evelyn was already moving toward it. Sadie got there first, snatching the purse. Touch her things and I'll have you arrested for assault. Assault? Evelyn's laugh was brittle. Look at her, she slipped on ice. Isn't that right, Clara? The ambulance rounded the corner, its lights painting everything in surreal reds and blues. My phone buzzed again, Leo's name on the screen. Clara. Evelyn's voice dropped low. Think about what you're doing. This evidence, these accusations, they won't just hurt Wyatt. They'll destroy our whole family. Is that what you want? The paramedics were approaching. I had seconds to decide. What I want, I said, tasting blood from my split lip, is the truth. About everything. I grabbed my phone and answered Leo's call, watching Evelyn's face contort with rage. Leo, I'm heading to Memorial Hospital. Bring whatever you have on Wyatt's father. It's time we all knew what really happened. The paramedics reached us just as Evelyn's mask finally cracked, revealing something desperate and dangerous underneath. I'd never seen her look more like her son. The hospital room felt too bright, too sterile as Leo spread old documents across my bedside table. My head throbbed beneath the bandages, but the truth hurt more than any concussion. Your father-in-law wasn't driven to bankruptcy, Leo said quietly. He embezzled millions from his clients, then tried to frame me for it when the authorities got close. I stared at the court documents, the bank statements, the suicide note. Wyatt doesn't know. No. Evelyn made sure he believed a different story. Leo's voice carried years of buried pain. I kept quiet to protect his family's reputation. Maybe that was a mistake. The door burst open. Wyatt stood there, still in his suit, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. His eyes locked onto Leo. Get out, he snarled. Wyatt, please, I started. You too, Clara. His voice cracked. Pack your things and get out of our house. I've already called my lawyer. She's not going anywhere. Sadie stepped between us. Not until you see these. She thrust the documents at him. Wyatt's hands shook as he read, his face draining of color. These are lies, he whispered, but I could see the doubt creeping in. My father was a good man. Your father was troubled, Leo said gently. But he loved you. Everything he did, even the fraud, was to give you the life he thought you deserved. Shut up. Wyatt hurled the papers across the room. You don't get to talk about him. Either of you. He turned to me, and for a moment I saw the boy he must have been when his father died, lost, angry, desperate for someone to blame. I trusted you, he said. You were supposed to be on my side. I am on your side, I replied. That's why I couldn't let you destroy yourself with this revenge plot. Destroy myself? He laughed bitterly. I've already done that. The SEC is investigating our firm. Someone leaked documents about the takeover attempt. We're finished. My heart stopped. Wyatt, I didn't. Save it. He pulled out his phone, showing me an email. Your friend Sadie here did it. Right after you fell. Guess she thought I wouldn't notice her copying the files from your purse while we waited for the ambulance. I looked at Sadie, who met my gaze steadily. You had the evidence, Clara. But you weren't going to use it. Someone had to. The monitor beside my bed beeped faster as my pulse raced. Everything was falling apart, and I couldn't tell who was protecting whom anymore. "Get out," I whispered. "All of you." One by one they left, leaving me alone with the scattered papers and the wreckage of too many lives built on lies. Outside my window, snow began to fall, covering everything in silent white. The storm hit just as I was leaving the hospital, turning the highway into a blur of headlights and sleet. My rental car sputtered once, twice, then died completely, coasting to a stop on the shoulder. Perfect. Through the windshield, I could see Wyatt's office building looming in the distance, its lights still burning despite the late hour. The SEC would be there tomorrow morning. Everything would change. A tap on my window made me jump. Leo stood there, snow collecting on his shoulders. "Need a ride?" I hesitated, then grabbed my purse and documents. As we drove toward the city, Leo broke the silence. "Wyatt's in his office. Security called, said he's been there all night shredding files." My stomach dropped. "He's destroying evidence." "Not just that." Leo's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "He's trying to transfer everything to offshore accounts before the investigation starts. If he succeeds, then everyone loses everything. Again." I pulled out my phone, staring at Wyatt's last text. "I'm fixing this. Don't try to stop me." "We should call the authorities," Leo suggested. "No." I straightened up. "Take me to his office." The security guard recognized me, letting us up without question. Through the glass walls of Wyatt's office, I could see him hunched over his computer, surrounded by scattered papers and empty coffee cups. He didn't look up when I entered. "Come to watch the end? Come to stop you from making it worse." "Worse?" He laughed hollowly. "My father died thinking he was a failure. My mother lied to me my entire life. My wife betrayed me. How could it get worse? By becoming exactly what you thought your father was." I placed the old court documents on his desk. "He made mistakes, Wyatt. But he faced them. He confessed. That's what the suicide note really said, not what Evelyn told you." Wyatt's hands froze over the keyboard. "You're lying. Read it yourself. He wanted you to know the truth, but Evelyn, she thought she was protecting you." His shoulders started shaking. For a moment, I thought he was crying, but then I realized he was laughing, a broken, desperate sound. "All these years," he whispered. "All this planning. For nothing." "Not nothing." I moved closer. "You can still make this right. But you have to decide now, are you your father's son or your mother's?" Wyatt stared at the computer screen, then at his father's confession. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Whether police or ambulance, I couldn't tell. His finger hovered over the enter key. One click would complete the transfers, destroying countless lives, including his own. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said quietly. "I know." I reached for his hand. "So don't." 6 months later, I stood in my new office at Carter Innovations, watching the spring rain wash away the last traces of winter. The view wasn't as impressive as the one from Wyatt's old office, but it was mine. My phone buzzed, a text from Sadie. Saw the news. "You okay?" The headline had broken this morning. Wyatt had accepted a plea deal, avoiding jail time in exchange for his testimony against the bigger players in the attempted takeover. He'd also agreed to pay back everything. "I'm fine," I texted back and meant it. A knock at my door made me turn. Leo stood there, holding a familiar-looking envelope. "This came for you," he said, handing it over. Security screened it. "It's safe." I recognized Wyatt's handwriting immediately. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unopened, but something made me pause. "He's moving to Seattle," Leo mentioned casually. "Starting over with a small consulting firm. Evelyn's not speaking to him." I nodded, running my finger along the envelope's edge. "And the company?" "Growing stronger. Thanks in large part to our new head of project development." He smiled. "Your father would have been proud, Clara." After Leo left, I finally opened the letter. It was short. "Clara, I found Dad's old journal. He wrote about wanting to confess everything, about hoping I'd understand someday. It took me losing everything to finally understand. You were right, I had a choice about who I wanted to be. I'm choosing now. Take care of yourself." A post-it note fell from the envelope, an old one, yellow with age, in unfamiliar handwriting. "The truth sets us free, but first it breaks us. Choose freedom anyway." Wyatt's father's words. The ones that led him to confess, to choose truth over pride. My computer pinged with a calendar reminder, dinner with Sadie. She'd been pushing me to try online dating, insisting it was time to get back out there. Maybe she was right, but first I had one more thing to do. I pulled up my email and started typing. Wyatt, thank you for the letter. Dad was right. The truth does break us. But we get to choose how we rebuild. Good luck in Seattle. Clara. I hit send, then gathered my things. Outside my office, the team was celebrating landing a major new client. Through the glass, I could see them laughing, planning, building something new together. The rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across my desk. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, not an ending this time, but just another sound in a city full of people starting over. I closed my office door and joined my team, ready for whatever came next.
Hello, I'm Jennifer, a 35-year-old woman who recently went through a divorce. The end of my marriage caught me off guard, as I once believed it to be the most fulfilling relationship of my life. However, as time went on, I realized that our union had cracks I couldn't ignore. Now, I'd like to share our journey, from how it all began. John and I met through a mutual friend, and our connection was instant. He was charming, attractive, and had a magnetic personality. We dated for 3 years before deciding to get married. Throughout our relationship, things seemed to flow smoothly. We shared common values and made an effort to accommodate each other's needs. But there was one significant hurdle: John's parents, Mary and Kevin. The first sign of trouble came early. When John took me to meet them, I was greeted by an awkward sight: 3 plates set at the dinner table, for John, Mary, and Kevin. There wasn't one for me. I felt humiliated, but I brushed it off and had to ask for a plate myself. Throughout the meal, they made cutting remarks and were dismissive, and John sat there, silent. Looking back, that moment was a warning of the larger issues that would plague our marriage. But I held on, hoping John would defend me. He didn't. After that uncomfortable evening, I waited for John to bring it up, to apologize, or at least acknowledge how wrong it all felt. But he didn't. Frustrated, I finally confronted him about it. I told him how disrespected I felt, and his reaction was shockingly indifferent. He brushed it off, saying he was tired and wanted to sleep. When I pushed further, expressing how hurt I was that he hadn't stood up for me, John defended himself, saying he couldn't possibly disrespect his parents in their own home. I felt a surge of anger. Disrespect them? I asked. You couldn't even ask them to be decent to me? A heads up would have been nice. My parents are different, he said, and speaking up would have been disrespectful. And you're still defending them? Do you even care how I felt in that moment? Can we talk about this later? I'm going to bed. Good night. I stood there, feeling a sharp sting of betrayal. It was clear he felt no remorse. I hoped maybe he was embarrassed and didn't know how to deal with it. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The next morning, John acted like nothing had happened. I was still angry, so I didn't speak to him for a week, waiting for him to apologize. That apology never came. I realized this wasn't a battle worth losing my marriage over. So, I buried my feelings, pushed aside the hurt, and resumed speaking to him. But things had changed. Without discussing it, we never went to Mary and Kevin's house again, and I avoided them as much as I could. The next time I saw them was at our wedding. I kept my distance, but eventually, they approached us to congratulate us. It wasn't long before they began discussing our honeymoon plans. When we mentioned Hawaii, they offered to pay for a trip to Paris instead, on the condition that they come with us. As tempting as it sounded, I wanted time alone with John, not a family trip. Feeling overwhelmed, I excused myself and headed to the bathroom, uneasy with the whole situation. Isn't a honeymoon supposed to be about creating special moments together? While Hawaii wasn't Paris, it was still a beautiful place I had always dreamed of visiting. What bothered me wasn't the destination, but the fact that John made the decision without even consulting me. I tried to shake off my disappointment and enjoy the reception, but the mood had already soured. I endured the rest of the evening and the quiet ride home in silence, too drained to even begin explaining how I felt. The unease lingered the next morning, and I decided to talk to John about it. I shared my concerns about the honeymoon, explaining that it wasn't about rejecting Paris, but about the fact that we hadn't made the decision together. I told him how important it was for us to plan something special just for us, but John brushed it off, emphasizing how generous his parents were in offering the trip and how Paris was an incredible opportunity. Frustrated, I tried again to explain that it wasn't about the destination, it was about the lack of communication between us. Despite my concerns, John dismissed them, insisting that I was overthinking it and ruining a wonderful chance. Feeling hurt and unsupported, I reluctantly agreed to go along with his parents' plan, though I buried my reservations. A month later, our vacation began. We met Mary and Kevin at the airport, and to my surprise, they were unusually friendly. I couldn't quite believe the shift in their behavior, so I remained guarded. During the first week in Italy, they kept up the friendliness, and I cautiously hoped things might be different. But slowly, they reverted to their old ways. They started making sarcastic comments about my clothes, questioning why I would wear certain outfits. Some days, they even excluded me from their plans, labeling my attire as too embarrassing for the places they wanted to go. As the weeks dragged on, I felt more and more isolated. With 3 more weeks of this trip ahead, I did my best to adapt, dressing more modestly and even earning compliments from locals, but nothing seemed to satisfy them. Mary and Kevin began taking John along on outings without telling me, leaving me alone at the hotel. Then came the passive-aggressive comments about my weight and eating habits. If I ordered anything other than a salad, Mary would make pointed remarks about it, all while indulging in heavier meals herself. Through it all, John sat quietly, sometimes even stifling laughter. I found myself counting down the days until we could return home. Spending time with John and his parents became unbearable. They relentlessly criticized and belittled me, and John simply stood by, ignoring it all. I knew I had to talk to him about it, but every time I tried to raise the issue, he dismissed my concerns or avoided the conversation entirely. On our last day, I took the initiative to gather our passports and tickets for the flight home. When I asked John where my ticket was, he shrugged and said he didn't have it. His response didn't sit right with me, but I was too mentally exhausted to make sense of the situation. I went to Mary and Kevin's room, hoping they had my ticket. When I asked Mary about our departure, she casually mentioned that she, Kevin, and John were leaving in 3 hours. I was stunned. What about my ticket? I asked. Oh, we forgot to buy one for you, Mary replied, as if it were no big deal. Shocked and upset, I pressed her on how they could forget something so important. Mary waved it off, telling me not to worry, they'd buy my ticket separately. But something about the whole situation didn't feel right. I vented my frustration to John about being pushed aside, insisting that he couldn't keep supporting his parents at my expense. When I sought help with the ticket situation, John's mother insisted I deal with it on my own, only intensifying the tension. John was caught between his loyalty to his parents and our relationship, leaving him without a clear path forward. In the end, he decided to go to Turkey with them, leaving me to find my own way home. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. As we left their room, I pleaded with John not to abandon me, but he turned away, visibly embarrassed. He explained that his parents had funded the trip from their retirement savings, and he felt he couldn't disrespect them. While I was appalled, I couldn't ignore how disrespectful his parents were being to me. Tears filled my eyes as I watched him pack, his gaze barely meeting mine, offering no apologies or even a suggestion to cover my ticket back. The urge to cause a scene was strong, but I felt too humiliated to act. When it was time to leave, John walked away with his head down, while Mary and Kevin waved goodbye with glee. I was left seething and alone in a foreign country. After enduring their remarks and John's silence for an entire month, I had reached my breaking point. Revenge suddenly seemed like a compelling necessity, and I knew exactly how to achieve it. I learned that John's financial stability had come at the cost of his parents' retirement. His mortgage was assumable, and they had transferred it to him when he became stable. Now, they were drowning in debt, and the house was on the brink of foreclosure. John nominated me as the next owner, citing my higher income and excellent credit. I called my best friend Nancy, whose husband Benjamin specialized in property law. During a FaceTime call, we mapped out a plan, detailing how I had been solely responsible for paying off the mortgage since John's nomination. Initially, I accepted his lack of contributions, thinking he deserved some financial comfort, but after 7 months of his neglect, I confronted him, only to be met with accusations of jealousy over his lifestyle. It was time to take control. Before the mortgage, I had my own life, and I should have seen the red flags about John's character. Talking to Benjamin opened my eyes to the absurdity of my situation. He expressed disbelief that I hadn't recognized John's true nature before marrying him. I admitted that I was blinded by love. Benjamin pointed out the insanity of John relying on me to pay off his home and advised me on the next steps. He assured me that transferring the house into my name would be straightforward. Given my payment history, he offered to handle the legalities, even preparing an eviction notice. Grateful for their support, I promised myself to be more vigilant in the future. Knowing John and his parents had a long layover in Turkey, I planned my move carefully. They intended to stay at an airport hotel in Istanbul, and while I had initially looked forward to the trip, I now saw it as an opportunity to serve them the eviction notice upon their return. I booked a flight home, lucky to find one departing in just a couple of hours. The journey was a blur of tears as I grappled with the reality of my life. Despite my love for John, he hadn't bothered to check on me. The thought of evicting them brought me a fleeting sense of satisfaction. I imagined their predicament, 3 adults crammed into our small apartment, which was about to lose its lease. But any sympathy quickly faded as I remembered how they had abandoned me without a thought for my return. If they could treat me that way, I had no regrets about taking decisive action. As soon as I landed, I set my revenge in motion, checking John and his parents' flight status. I saw they would be departing in 3 hours. Fueled by adrenaline, I drove straight to Mary and Kevin's house. Using the spare key hidden under the mat, I let myself in and woke them up. My next step was to find the best divorce lawyer nearby and initiate proceedings. I called Nancy, and she and Benjamin came over to support me as I signed the paperwork to remove John's name from ownership and finalized the eviction notice. Seeing my friends brought forth emotions I had buried since arriving home. It was hard to be back in a place filled with reminders of John, but their presence allowed me to release my pent-up feelings. After they left, I checked John's flight and saw they had about an hour before boarding. Wanting to appear composed, I took a brief nap, managing to rest for about 12 hours. When I woke, I quickly got ready and headed to the divorce attorney's office to collect the papers. Upon my return, I had just an hour before John and his parents were due back. My heart raced as their arrival drew near, but I steeled myself for what was to come. When they walked through the door, their surprise at finding me in their house was palpable. Ignoring their questions, I boldly declared my intention for them to leave. Their confusion quickly turned to alarm, with Mary and Kevin demanding an explanation. I calmly informed them that I wanted them out because the house was now mine, explaining that I had been paying the mortgage for the past year. John, clearly caught off guard, attempted to deflect blame, claiming they believed he was handling the payments. I countered his excuses, revealing that he had nominated me as the owner and exposing his deceit. The shock on their faces confirmed that my plan had worked, and I felt a surge of empowerment as I stood firm in reclaiming what was rightfully mine. I made it clear that John was excluded from the ownership due to his consistent failure to contribute, solidifying my claim on the house. I firmly requested that they vacate the premises. Ignoring their pleas and protests, I was resolute, warning them of police involvement if they refused to leave. Just before they departed, I handed John the divorce papers, expressing my unwillingness to stay with someone who had exploited me and failed to support me when I needed it most. Despite his desperate attempts to apologize and plead for another chance, the emotional damage was far too deep for reconciliation. Watching them leave filled me with a sense of satisfaction. Although I knew healing from the hurt and betrayal would take time, I had taken back control of my life. I refused to let John and his parents dictate my happiness. This was my ultimate victory. In the following months, John tried to contest the divorce but quickly backed down upon realizing the financial strain it would impose. The last I heard, they had sought refuge with relatives while trying to find a place they could afford. Mary and Kevin returned to work to support themselves. While it was disheartening to see them struggle, it served as a lesson for them about meddling with someone who had once offered a helping hand. Since parting ways with them, my life has blossomed with greater happiness. Occasionally, memories of their actions resurface, but I find solace in the satisfaction of having taken a stand and reclaimed my life. Hi there, I'm Amanda, 31, and lately, things have taken a turn with my husband and his mom. I used to think marriage would be a breeze, but reality has set in. Life was so much easier when I was single, working as a vet assistant, surrounded by adorable pets, and embracing adventure on my trusty old bike from my dad. If it didn't hold sentimental value for him, I would have claimed it outright. My dad raised me on his own, and I've never felt the absence of a mom. He's an amazing dad, and I feel lucky to have him. After moving to Detroit, I started working at a vet clinic and quickly settled in. One day, while rushing to catch a cab, I met Steven. The cab driver was charming, with a classic boy-next-door vibe, and his silky hair caught my attention. Our playful banter made the ride enjoyable, and when our eyes met in the mirror, I felt a shy spark. He asked for my name and humorously suggested going out, which I playfully declined, telling him he wasn't my usual type, but we could be friends if he treated women right. Deal then. How about Italian food? I know a fantastic restaurant nearby that you'd love, he said, his excitement infectious. Are you serious about taking me out? I asked, intrigued. Absolutely, I adore Italian food, so it sounds perfect. That day, I felt energized at work, surprising my colleagues with my enthusiasm. Usually, there's an annoying dog, but I managed to stay calm. My friend Susan approached, noticing my distraction. What's up? Are you hiding something? I reassured her. Everything's great, just really happy. She quickly guessed I'd met someone cute, and I shared my story about Steven inviting me out. She teased me. A cab driver? Really? I defended him, insisting he was cute while she mentioned someone she had her eye on. That evening, Steven picked me up, and I was a bundle of nerves. He smelled incredible as he took me to a cozy spot by a small lake. The food was delicious, and as we enjoyed our pasta and wine, I couldn't help but notice his deep brown eyes and expressive eyebrows that lit up when he smiled. He mentioned introducing me to his mother, which felt a bit premature, maybe a red flag. I live with my dad and uncle in Wisconsin. They bought a house after my mom left, and now it's just us. My dad, always on the move, loves to travel. He has a vintage bike in great shape and visits often, but he's leaving in a week. Your dad seems pretty cool. Think he'd get along with mine? Steven asked. It depends on the connection. My dad's super protective. He shields my sister from everything, even tiny bugs. He's not trusting of guys around me. The last guy I introduced, my dad scared him off right at the doorstep. It was a comedy show. How about a fun bet? I impressed you with the restaurant and my charming self, so let's see if I can impress your dad. I'm betting $1.50. I'm confident I'll win that $145 wager. He's not easily impressed. Amanda, you haven't seen my skills yet. I'm Mr. Cool. I'll win him over, and he might even want us to tie the knot. Just wait and see. Alright, I'm feeling pretty confident about this. We all laughed, thinking he was joking. Little did I know he was serious. When I got home late, my dad was waiting, looking worried. Where have you been, young lady? It's midnight. Oh, Dad, I was working late. There were clients and emergencies. I'm not naive, Amanda. I heard you were with a guy. No one was with me. You're overthinking. I was just with Susan. I called her, and she said you were outside with a friend. Who was it? Fine, it was just Steven, an old friend. We hung out, that's all. Why didn't you mention him before? You know I worry about you. Sorry, Dad, I'll keep you in the loop. Steven's a cab driver, but he's nice. Just relax. Why a cab driver? Next time, just tell your father. The next day at work, I confronted Susan about my dad's worries. She was surprised at first but quickly understood. Why did you tell my dad about Steven? I asked Susan, a mix of frustration and concern in my voice. Chill, I just mentioned you were out with a friend. What if something happened to you? She replied, her tone defensive. Oh, come on, he's adorable and a total gentleman. I'll be meeting his mother soon. His mother? No way, you're moving too fast. The first date doesn't mean anything. He could be a creep for all you know. Don't bet on it, you'll lose, and since you think you're such a great judge of character, just don't even try. We exchanged numbers, and he started calling me more than texting, saying he loved hearing my voice. Steven even suggested I visit his house, claiming his mother was eager to meet me. Panic set in as I recalled Susan's words. Maybe I was rushing things. I wanted to take my time and see how our connection developed first, so I asked him to hold off on involving his mom for now. Steven was persistent but eventually got it. As much as I enjoy spending time with you, I want to take it slow before introducing anyone else. I really like you, but I want to like you even more, you know? Sure, I get it. I'm just so excited. I've never felt like this before. It's always a good time when you're around. You know what? I feel the same way. I'm happy we met. I'm usually outgoing, but not many guys have stood out to me, so this is all new. Are you saying I caught your eye? You're acknowledging that I'm different from other guys? Absolutely. Wow, saying this out loud is more awkward than keeping it to myself. You're the only person I feel I can truly be myself with. Amanda, I feel the same way. After 3 months of getting to know each other, we officially started dating. Steven invited me to a baseball game where a friend of his was making their debut. He sat close to me throughout the game, clearly interested. When our eyes met, he leaned in and gave me the sweetest kiss. That was the moment something special began. I was completely captivated by his charm. He introduced me to his friends, and we'd hang out, share drinks, and enjoy late nights together. Steven always made sure I got home safely, but my dad kept a watchful eye on Steven whenever he dropped me off. The last time he came over, my dad insisted on joining us for dinner, just the four of us. To my surprise, it seemed Steven had already won my dad over. It's not typical for my dad to invite people over, but I think he was excited about winning a $50 bet. We planned a special steak dinner for Steven, complete with fish fries, a bit of rice, and some delicious UK curry. We even enjoyed excellent red wine from Detroit. The spread was extravagant for just four of us, and I wore my best dress in his favorite color, violet. When Steven arrived, he looked dashing in a fancy tuxedo. Before we sat down to eat, we chatted and got to know each other better. So, Steven, how long have you lived in Detroit? My dad asked. Oh, for 2 years, sir. I know the city like the back of my hand, he replied confidently. That's great. So, you drive a taxi? Remember that night you took a ride with that strange guy? My dad loved sharing stories like that. Not now, Amanda. We're still in the early stages, and my dad thinks it's not the right time for those tales, Steven said, casting me a quick glance. Your dad is right, Amanda. We can be affectionate elsewhere, but not here. Steven, why don't you share that story Amanda mentioned? My dad encouraged. After dinner, as Steven was getting ready to leave, he said, So, do I owe you $50? Nah, I don't need it. I'm just happy to show I can be smooth, I replied. Look at you, all confident. You must be feeling good, he said with a grin. I love you, you know. Yeah, I love you too. 5 months later, Steven finally asked me to meet his mom. I felt it was the right time, but nerves surged as I stood outside her door, wanting to make a good impression. Steven always spoke highly of his mom, Donna. I took a deep breath and knocked, my heart racing. The door opened to reveal a woman with a warm smile and gentle eyes. She welcomed me in, and a wave of relief washed over me. Things felt like they were off to a good start, and I hoped this meeting would spark a wonderful connection. As the evening unfolded, Donna showed genuine curiosity in getting to know me. She asked about my family, hobbies, and dreams. I eagerly shared my stories, aiming to forge a bond with her. As the night went on, I felt increasingly at ease, grateful for the chance to connect with Steven's mother. Yet, amidst the laughter and conversation, a nagging feeling lingered. Donna's warm smile occasionally seemed forced, and her gaze hinted at something unspoken. I couldn't shake the sense that she had thoughts hidden behind her eyes. When dinner concluded, Donna excused herself, leaving Steven and me alone. I turned to him, concern etched on my face. Do you think your mother likes me? There's something off, and I can't quite put my finger on it, I confessed. After stepping away for a moment, Steven returned with Donna, both carrying plates of dessert. During our conversation, Donna praised me, expressing how lucky Steven was to have found someone like me. The topic shifted to marriage, and my heart raced. I choked on my cupcake as Steven shot a surprised glance at his mother. Her words hinted at Steven's intentions to propose. And during our next date, he did. The wedding was simple, held at a small hotel to keep costs down. I was overjoyed to have Steven as my husband. However, throughout the ceremony, Donna remained silent, her expression cold and distant. While I could empathize with a mother feeling sadness over her son's marriage, Donna's demeanor made it hard to connect with her. Afterward, Steven moved into my house, and Donna's enigmatic attitude continued to puzzle me. My dad returned to my uncle's house, promising to visit Steven and me soon. Once we settled in, Steven and I decided to freshen things up a bit. He turned our bedroom into his dream space, while I focused on organizing the living room and sprucing up the kitchen. Shortly after we got married, Susan visited us. Even though she was feeling under the weather, it was great to see her and Steven connect. But then things took a strange turn. My belongings started disappearing. What do you mean, gone? I asked, bewildered. It began with small items, my favorite jacket, a few other things. They just kept vanishing. When I mentioned it to Steven, he shrugged it off, suggesting I'd simply misplaced them. He wasn't eager to help me track anything down. should I swing by and lend a hand? I am your good luck charm, after all, he joked. No, it's fine, I'll handle it, I probably just moved them around, I replied, but no matter how much I searched, items continued to vanish without a trace. This puzzling trend persisted for a year, with the situation worsening during our honeymoon. Upon our return, our home was a disaster zone, beer bottles scattered, dirty dishes piled high, and an awful smell wafting from unwashed laundry. I suspected my dad, who had the only spare keys, but when I called, he was still at my uncle's place. I downplayed things, not wanting to worry him, believing Stephen and I could sort it out. One day, I came home early from work, feeling a sense of unease as I unlocked the door. The lock felt off, and a chill ran down my spine. I entered quietly, bracing myself. As I approached the bedroom, I heard noise. Grabbing an umbrella from the corner, I crept toward the sound. To my shock, I found Donna rifling through my closet, wearing my favorite jacket. "Stop," I shouted. She turned, claiming I had enchanted her son. Confused, I asked how she got in. She yelled back that this was her son's home, not mine, and that everything belonged to her. In a moment of panic, I swung the umbrella to protect myself. It barely grazed her head, but she collapsed. I called the police, and Donna tearfully admitted her mistake, saying she was terrified of losing her son. She apologized, recognizing the damage she had caused to our relationship and our privacy. Her extreme actions stemmed from love for Stephen, but she finally grasped how serious her behavior was. The police put her in handcuffs while I showed them my property documents. They confirmed she had broken in and stolen my things, advising me to be cautious with any objects around others. Looking at Stephen, I could see he felt both regret and sorrow. "It's complicated," I said. "Donna has always been overprotective. She thought she had to protect me no matter what, even if it meant crossing lines." "Stephen, are you a child? Don't you know the difference between right and wrong?" I added, frustration creeping into my voice. "I'm sorry, Amanda, I didn't think it would go this far," he replied. "At first, your mom seemed nice, but her true nature was hidden behind that friendly facade. I can't deal with this anymore." Though forgiveness wouldn't come easily, we recognized that Donna was genuinely sorry and that Stephen had misread the situation. Over the next few months, we took steps to secure our home and set clear boundaries with her, including changing locks and installing a security system. Still feeling hurt, I decided I needed some space and suggested we take a break. Stephen understood and gave me the time I needed. My dad stayed with me until I started to feel better. Donna is set to be released from jail soon, but she can't be a part of my life anymore. I'm healing, but for Stephen to be back in my life, things need to change. Hello, my name is Abigail, and my life has been a series of challenges. I've always been a hard worker, growing up in difficult circumstances and juggling low-paying jobs before finally finding one that offered stability. College wasn't an option for me due to financial constraints, but I never lost focus on building a steady life. That's when I met Joseph, my husband. We worked together, and after he got a job transfer, we started dating. I thought he truly cared for me, and that's why I said yes when he proposed. When Joseph hit a rough patch in his career, I supported him without hesitation, even taking on the responsibility of managing our bills. But my world shattered when I discovered that Joseph had been having an affair for an entire year. When I confronted him, he didn't show an ounce of remorse. Despite the betrayal, I hesitated to divorce him because of our son, Paul. He begged me to keep the family together, and torn between my own pain and Paul's pleas, I gave Joseph another chance. He promised to end the affair, and for a brief time, it seemed like things were getting better, but then I found out he went right back to the same woman. Even though I was furious, I stayed for Paul's sake. Over time, Paul became my main support. He chose not to go to college after high school, opting to start working instead, and I stood by him, determined to help. Joseph eventually found a job at a newly opened restaurant, and for the first time in a while, I felt a glimmer of hope. I was proud of Paul for landing his job at the same place, but just as I began to feel like things were turning around, everything came crashing down. The day before Paul was supposed to sign his work contract, he and Joseph blindsided me. They sat me down, and Joseph, with no emotion in his voice, said, "Abigail, now that Paul is 20, there are no more custody concerns. Here are the divorce papers. along with an eviction notice. I want you out of the house. I couldn't believe it. What kind of betrayal is this, Joseph? You can't just spring this on me. This is absurd, I shouted, but what hurt the most was when Paul, my own son, turned against me too. Mom, we don't need you anymore, Paul said coldly. The only thing you were good for was money. Dad doesn't want you here, and neither do I. I've got a job now, so you're not necessary anymore. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My own son, who had once begged me to stay with Joseph, now wanted me gone. Joseph smirked, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Look at that, Abigail, even your son's ready to kick you out. Guess you weren't such a great mom after all. I was desperate to understand. Paul, how can you say this? Why do you want me gone? What did I do to deserve this? You're just annoying, Paul spat back. Dad's girlfriend is way better than you. She knows how to have fun and be a parent. All you ever did was nag me to study. I'd rather call her Mom. She's pretty, she's fun, and she's rich. She promised me everything when she's gone. You've got nothing. I was speechless. Joseph's mistress wasn't just his lover, she was set to marry him and adopt Paul. They gushed about her like she was some savior, while I sat there, numb with shock and betrayal. Joseph continued, his tone businesslike. So, we'll make this a clean break, Abigail. Paul's an adult now, so there's no need for child support. We'll just part ways quietly. I looked at them, stunned. Is that all I was to you? Just a paycheck? Am I that replaceable? I asked, my voice breaking. I stood by you through everything, Joseph, and Paul. I sacrificed so much for you. Is this what I get in return? The tears came then, uncontrollably. They laughed, both of them, as if my heartbreak was nothing but a joke. I had always known Joseph was cold, but to hear my own son dismiss me so easily, it was unbearable. For years, I had cared for them, supported them, and now they were casting me aside like I meant nothing. But as they laughed, something shifted inside me. Their cruelty ignited a fire in me. I wouldn't let them define my worth. They thought they could break me, but I'd prove them wrong. I walked out of the room and headed upstairs, leaving Paul and Joseph behind, still discussing their plans. Joseph had just handed me divorce papers and an eviction notice, thinking he no longer needed me or my money. I took a moment to process it all, then returned downstairs, calm and composed. You want a divorce, Joseph, and you want me out of the house? I said, my voice steady. Fine, I'll make it happen. I'll call my lawyer, and he'll be here soon. You might want to contact yours to finalize everything, since it seems like you've already made up your mind. But let me be clear, this house is jointly owned. I have just as much right to it as you do. I won't be leaving without my fair share. I bought this house with my money, and you don't have a claim to any of it. Paul, looking frustrated, chimed in, Mom, why are you being so selfish? If you take half the house, I'll lose my inheritance. Dad can't afford to buy you out, and we might have to sell it. Isn't that a bit much? I turned to him, keeping my voice even. Paul, I had no idea you cared so much about this house. I'm willing to compromise. I won't take half, but Joseph has to agree to give up alimony and drop any legal claims against me in the divorce. Joseph scoffed. Fine, Abigail, I don't need your money anyway. Besides, my girlfriend is more than capable of taking care of us. Shortly after, my lawyer arrived, followed by Joseph's. We went over the terms, and as promised, Joseph waived alimony. He seemed smug, sharing satisfied looks with Paul, but I kept my face neutral, refusing to let my anger or hurt show. The papers were signed quickly since there were no custody or child support issues now that Paul was an adult. I was relieved, knowing I wouldn't have to deal with someone who had turned his back on his own mother. Once the papers were finalized, the lawyers left, and the deal was done. I hurried upstairs, locked myself in my room, and called my best friend, Clara. Is it over, Abigail? Did you both sign the papers? She asked, her voice filled with anticipation. Yes, it's done, I replied. Joseph didn't put up a fight. He agreed to let it all go. That's amazing. Just a little longer, and you'll be free. We can finally put all of this behind you. Clara cheered. I smiled for the first time that day. Exactly. I can't wait to leave this place and be done with Joseph and Paul for good. How about you, Clara? Have you sorted everything out on your end? Kayla's voice was full of reassurance. Definitely, Abigail. No one gets away with disrespecting my best friend. You've got nothing to worry about. I'm going to teach your ungrateful son a lesson. Just leave it to me at work tomorrow, Kayla promised, her voice filled with determination. Encouraged by her words, I made up my mind to move in with her the very next day. As I packed downstairs, I overheard Joseph eagerly confiding in his secret partner, thrilled about his newfound freedom. Little did they know that their joy would soon turn to regret. Before consulting my lawyer, I shared everything with Kayla. Outraged by the situation, she vowed to help me and graciously offered me a place to stay. She also had a surprise in store for both Joseph and Paul. The next morning, Paul left for work in high spirits, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Whistling cheerfully, he hopped into his car and drove off. Meanwhile, I loaded my belongings into my trunk and left the house as well. After dropping off my things at Kayla's place, we headed to the restaurant where Paul had recently started his new job. When we arrived, we overheard Paul shouting at the staff. As soon as he noticed us, he fell silent. I greeted him with a smile, asking casually, "Is everything okay here at your new job?" Paul, visibly annoyed, dismissed my question, saying it was none of my business. He explained he was waiting for a meeting with the owner to resolve some issues with the staff. I reassured him that I wouldn't interfere, adding jokingly, "Don't worry, I won't butt in." Paul, still irritated, snapped back, saying it was his workplace, and whatever problems he had were between him and his employer. He told us to mind our own business and declared that he had work to do, unlike us. Kayla and I burst into laughter. Even the restaurant staff struggled to maintain their professionalism. Embarrassed, Paul scolded us for laughing and went on to praise his dad's girlfriend, comparing her favorably to us. He even accused Kayla of gossiping about him with me. Kayla, now composed, smiled slyly and said, "Well, Paul, there's something you should know. This restaurant, it's mine." Paul's face drained of color as the realization hit him. "What? That's not possible," he stammered. "You're just a homemaker. How could you possibly own a place like this?" Ignoring his disbelief, Kayla calmly explained, "When my husband passed away, I inherited a significant amount of money. Instead of sitting around, I invested it, and I bought this restaurant last year. It used to be a small cafe, but I expanded it." Paul, still in denial, accused her of making up the story, but Kayla challenged him. "Ask anyone here, they'll confirm it." Paul glanced around, and to his shock, the staff nodded in agreement. They knew exactly who the owner was. Realizing his mistake, Paul tried to backtrack. "Wow, Kayla, that's impressive. I guess I'll be working for you then." But Kayla wasn't having it. "Hold on, Paul, I've had a change of heart. Even though I offered you the job, I don't think I want someone like you on my team. The person who hired you didn't know you like I do, but I do now. I don't want someone who doesn't appreciate what they have working for me." Paul panicked, realizing his mistake. "Wait, Kayla, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm a hard worker. Your team hired me because they saw my potential. I'll do my best, I promise." Kayla remained unimpressed. "Paul, I've known you for 20 years. You've never pulled your weight at home, and you've barely gained any real work experience. This job wasn't about you wanting to work. It was about impressing your dad's girlfriend. You've treated your mother terribly, and now you expect me to trust you? Sorry, Paul, but I can't hire you. We didn't sign a contract, so consider the offer withdrawn. I'll find someone else easily." Kayla's words cut through the room like a knife, and the restaurant staff exchanged disapproving glances. Paul, realizing he was losing everything, turned to me in desperation. "Mom, why aren't you saying anything? Please, talk to Kayla, tell her I'll do a good job." I stood there, watching Paul plead, but this time, I wasn't going to save him. It was time for him to face the consequences of his actions. "Why should I, Paul?" I replied, my voice firm. "You chose your dad's mistress over me. You're no son of mine. This is your karma, and Kayla's assessment is spot on. I won't interfere. You're ungrateful, and it's hard to trust someone like that. There's no reason anyone should offer you a job." Paul lost his temper, his true self emerging as he started hurling hurtful words at me. His anger was so intense that one of his co-workers pulled out her phone, ready to call for help. Despite his insults, Kayla remained calm. "You think you can treat me like this without consequences?" Paul shouted. "Just wait, I'll find a job, and then my stepmom will buy this place. I'll ruin you." Kayla smiled, unfazed. "Do you really believe your stepmom will purchase my business?" "Oh, Paul, you're quite amusing. She doesn't have a penny to her name. You're as gullible as your dad." She told you exactly what you wanted to hear, and you didn't even bother to check the facts. Your new stepmom is broke, Paul. Paul shook his head in disbelief. That's not possible. You're just jealous because she's prettier and wealthier than you. Kayla's expression didn't change. When I found out your dad was cheating, I told Abigail, and we did some digging. Turns out, your dad's other woman is living off him. She's been pretending to be wealthy, but she's just after his money. Her plan? Make you work, trap your dad into marriage, and then live off both of your incomes. It was like watching lightning strike. Paul stood there, stunned, struggling to accept what we were telling him. Even though everything we said made sense, he couldn't fully grasp it. We encouraged him to investigate for himself, and he left, determined to uncover the truth. In the following days, Paul turned to Joseph, and together they tried to find out more. Unfortunately, they fell for the lies of someone they thought they could trust. While that was happening, I arranged a court date to finalize the divorce, setting into motion our 8-month separation. During that time, Joseph, unable to accept the truth, went ahead and married the woman he'd been cheating with. Under her influence, he even abandoned his own son. Paul, facing one hardship after another, eventually came to me for help. His dad had kicked him out, and with no real work experience, he was struggling to find a decent job. On top of that, he was dealing with threats from his dad's new wife. Desperate, he wanted to reconcile and come back home. I told him he needed to fix the mess he created before coming back to me. Now, he's working at Walmart and sharing an apartment with 3 roommates. As for Joseph, he's come to realize the truth about his new wife's financial situation. He knows we were right and is stuck in a miserable marriage. He's been messaging me, asking for another chance. I don't plan on giving him that. Instead, I'm considering buying his house, which is on the market, to help clear the debts his new wife racked up on her credit cards. What do you think? I'd really appreciate your input. I can no longer tolerate your presence. My new dream home deserves to be free of any unwanted elements, so I need you to leave immediately. Huh, what do you mean? Yes, I simply can't live with someone like you any longer. My name is Bella, and I'm 32. I was married to Dylan, who is 5 years younger than me, a detail that only became problematic recently. I first met Dylan at a party hosted by my friend Janice, who was his workout buddy. Dylan was charming, with a chiseled jaw and a strong build. At that time, I was single, and Janice was determined to play matchmaker, introducing me to every eligible man in the room, including Dylan. Hey, Dylan, meet my brilliant millionaire friend, Bella. Janice, please stop embarrassing me. Not embarrassing, just stating facts. I blushed, grateful for her praise as she added that I could have also been introduced as a beauty with brains. Well, she's certainly both. You two enjoy yourselves while I mingle with the other guests. Once Janice left, Dylan asked why Janice had called me geeky. I smiled and explained that I was an engineer at a software company, which kept me busy and earned me that nickname. That's impressive. So, you must be doing well financially, making you a millionaire geek. I laughed. You could say that. The evening unfolded with easy conversation, and I found Dylan to be incredibly sweet and captivating. We began meeting regularly for coffee and dinners. He started picking me up from work, eager to maximize our time together, as he worked as an assistant at a small firm. A few months later, he proposed. Although I loved him, I felt it was too soon, especially with the age difference. I voiced my concerns, questioning whether his intentions were genuine. He assured me that time shouldn't dictate our decisions, challenging the outdated notion that the man should always be older. Despite his reassurances, societal expectations loomed large in my mind. Ultimately, Dylan convinced me that our love could overcome any obstacles, and I said yes. We introduced each other to our families. My father, Jeffrey, was quiet but approving, while my mother privately expressed concerns about our financial compatibility. I reassured her that we had discussed finances, downplaying our income differences. She warned me about men's egos regarding financial success, but I defended Dylan, emphasizing his willingness to share household responsibilities since my job was demanding. That conversation made me realize I had never actually discussed finances with Dylan, nor had I asked about his salary. Though I was financially independent and not interested in his money, I recalled that he had inquired about my salary before proposing. Despite my initial worries, I chose to overlook it. excited as we started our married life together. Our honeymoon in Hawaii, funded by my company, was a joyful beginning as we embraced living together. However, a month into our marriage, Dylan sat me down after dinner, looking serious. "I'm sorry to bring this up, but I'm in a difficult spot and need your help. Is everything all right?" "Not exactly. My parents are struggling. They live in a second-floor apartment with no elevator, and as they age, the stairs are becoming a real challenge for them." "I understand. Have you thought about moving them to a ground-floor home or an apartment with an elevator?" I suggested that, but they'd prefer to build a house instead. I was taken aback. Building a house can be quite expensive. Are you prepared for that financially, or are you considering taking out a loan? He hesitated, finally admitting he might need to ask me to lend him the money for the construction. I was caught off guard by this unexpected request. I carefully pointed out the significant amount involved and expressed my hesitation about such a large loan. Frustrated, Dylan insisted it shouldn't be a problem for me, given my stable income, but I remained uncertain, unsure of how to refuse him. I suggested we take some time to think it over. Dylan agreed, looking forward to my decision. That night, I weighed the wisdom of lending my entire savings to him for the construction of a house for his parents. I had worked hard to accumulate that money, intending to secure my own home and a comfortable retirement. The next morning, as I headed to the office, Dylan hugged me, reminding me he was eager to discuss this over the weekend. As he rushed out the door, I felt uneasy and uncertain about what to do. Seeking guidance, I talked to a colleague who suggested formalizing the arrangement with a contract to ensure he would repay the loan. It seemed like a smart move to avoid potential issues later. When I returned home, I told Dylan I was willing to lend him the money but that he needed to repay me within 2 years. To my surprise, he accepted the terms. I insisted on having him sign a formal document, making it clear that I could take legal action if he defaulted. Dylan laughed at the suggestion, but I remained serious, presenting him with the paperwork. After a skeptical glance, he reluctantly signed. Despite completing the transaction, I still felt uneasy about lending him money, especially considering his modest salary. Soon after, Dylan's behavior shifted. He began coming home late and neglecting household chores. When I confronted him, he dismissed my concerns, attributing his late nights to work. Gradually, my affection for him began to fade. On weekends, he was often absent, overseeing the construction of the house. Sometimes he claimed to be at his parents' place, helping them out. Feeling increasingly suspicious, I decided I could no longer ignore my frustrations and confronted Dylan. "Dylan, you've been acting strangely and practically living off me. What's going on?" He immediately got defensive, accusing me of harshness. He claimed I had been relying on his income since we married and hadn't contributed financially or helped around the house. When I questioned his low earnings, he shrugged and said, "You knew my salary when we got married. Why did you marry me?" I was taken aback and confused. "Excuse me, I'm not here to argue. I just found out your mother is throwing a housewarming party for the new place tomorrow." His tone was almost mocking as he replied, "Oh, my bad. I couldn't believe what I was hearing." He hadn't even bothered to inform me that the house was finished or that his mother was planning a party, one I hadn't even been invited to. Frustrated, I shouted, "You built that house with my money, and you didn't even let me know it was done or that a party was happening." Dylan's nonchalant response only fueled my anger. "I must have forgotten. Please, be our guest before leaving the house," Dylan said, humming as if nothing had happened. My anger surged, and I felt an overwhelming urge to break everything in sight. But after a moment, I managed to calm myself. A couple of hours later, I received a call from my mother-in-law. She informed me about the housewarming party at their new home the following day. I didn't say much during the call but hung up feeling certain that Dylan had prompted her to invite me. Her previous lack of invitations and general disapproval of me made me skeptical. At first, I had no desire to attend the party, especially after recent events, but then I reconsidered. If I didn't go, they might spread rumors about me being jealous of their new house. Reluctantly, I decided to put on a smile and make an appearance. When I arrived, I noticed the entrance decorated with flowers, and Dylan and his mother were busy greeting guests. As I walked in, my mother-in-law expressed surprise at my attendance, questioning why I had come. Dylan quickly intervened, urging me to go inside. Inside, I found my father-in-law sitting alone. Despite the tense atmosphere, he greeted me warmly, thanking me for my financial contribution. It was a rare genuine moment amid the awkwardness, and I felt a sense of satisfaction in having lent the money, even though Dylan and his mother never showed any gratitude. Throughout the event, both Dylan and his mother remained indifferent towards me. I spent the time making small talk with distant relatives, eagerly waiting for the party to end so I could escape the toxic atmosphere. As soon as the guests left, I approached my father-in-law to say goodbye, but before I could leave, my mother-in-law interjected, dismissing my concern for her husband's well-being and accusing me of neglecting my responsibilities. Confused, I defended myself against her claims of laziness, insisting I didn't rely on Dylan for support. She insisted I should be grateful for his tolerance, accusing me of mistreating him. When my father-in-law tried to mediate, Teresa continued her tirade against me. I was taken aback when she accused me of mentally torturing Dylan for money, referencing our signed agreement. In disbelief, I denied any such behavior. Despite my father-in-law's attempts to intervene, she kept berating me, even insulting my appearance. Frustrated, I lost my composure and shouted back, questioning how she could speak to me that way. Dylan jumped in, scolding me for raising my voice in front of his mother, conveniently ignoring her earlier verbal abuse. Fed up, I expressed my dissatisfaction with their treatment and stated my intention to leave. You can't tolerate disrespect in your new dream house, huh? What? I refuse to keep living with a woman of such low character. You've been relying on my income all this time, and now you dare to call me trash. You're pathetic. Bella, let's be clear, you knew you could never attract a man like me, given your age and average looks. That's why you married me despite my modest earnings, so don't complain about money now. My face flushed with anger as I felt deceived in this marriage. I shouted back, unable to endure a life with someone so shallow. I demanded a divorce and the return of my money. Dylan responded with a malicious laugh, mocking my desire for a divorce. He insisted that if I wanted to end things, I would have to pay him, revealing his true colors. He admitted he had accessed our joint bank locker a month ago and taken important documents. Numb, I left the house, unable to bear their insults any longer. I headed straight to the bank, where I discovered the missing papers from the locker. The logs confirmed that Dylan had accessed it, and since we had a joint account, I realized he had only taken my contributions. Checking my wardrobe, I found that even the copy of the document I had kept there was missing. It dawned on me that Dylan had manipulated our entire relationship, showing interest in me only for my salary. He had emotionally coerced me into lending him money for his parents' house, only to later cast me aside. To make matters worse, he had stolen the agreement, leaving me powerless to reclaim my funds. Despite feeling tricked in many ways, I managed to keep the original papers safe, determined to seek justice. Gradually, I sensed that Dylan would betray me. Acting on instinct, I secured the original documents at my parents' house and kept copies both in the bank and my wardrobe. Even amidst the pain and insults, I felt relieved that I had followed my gut, getting the agreement signed and keeping it beyond his reach. I called my mom and recounted the entire incident. Enraged, she expressed a strong desire to sue Dylan and his mother for the torment they had put me through. To my surprise, she admitted she wasn't shocked. She suspected Dylan had been pretending to be in love with me all along. I asked her about his true intentions, and she pointed out how hastily the wedding had been arranged despite our limited acquaintance. Reflecting on her insights, I realized I should have been more cautious. I confessed to her that I had lied about discussing finances with him, acknowledging that I had never explored his salary because money hadn't seemed important at the time. Taking her advice to heart, I understood the need to be wary of trusting others too quickly. Empowered by my mom's support, I hired a lawyer and sent divorce papers along with an official notice demanding repayment within 2 years. I warned that if he failed to comply, the court would sell off his property to recover the owed amount. Dylan and his mother were blindsided and the divorce papers and repayment notice reached them. Desperate calls followed, but I ignored and blocked their numbers. Even Dylan's attempts to contact my parents went unanswered. In a final attempt, Dylan left a voicemail on my office phone, apologizing and professing his love. He pleaded for forgiveness, blaming his behavior on his mother's influence and expressing hope that I might reconsider. However, this time I stood firm, deleting his message and blocking his contact. Despite his lawyer urging me to reduce the owed amount by 60% due to financial constraints, I remained resolute and ignored the request. After enduring countless insults and personal attacks, there was no way I would forgive him or waive my rightfully owed money. Over the next 2 years, Dylan struggled to gather even 60% of the debt. relying on loans as his low salary fell short. Ultimately, he had to sell the very house he had thrown me out of. Facing the fallout from his actions, I learned from Janice that Dylan had moved back in with his parents in their old apartment. The truth had spread, leading to their ostracization in the neighborhood, with Teresa tormenting both Dylan and Adam for their financial struggles. Dylan even faced criticism at work, prompting him to quit and move to a different city. Adam, too, distanced himself from Teresa, opting to live with his brother in the countryside. Teresa eventually found work as a nanny to support herself. I felt no sympathy for Dylan or Teresa. They deserved the consequences of their actions. On the contrary, I found solace in knowing that Adam could finally enjoy a peaceful retirement. As for my own life, I had been in a relationship with Ronald for a year. He's a 38-year-old colleague whom I've known for many years, though our connection turned romantic only a year after my divorce. We developed a strong bond after spending time together at an office party. This time, I'm proceeding with caution, taking my time to thoroughly analyze our relationship before making any decisions. Hello, I'm Barbara, 36 years old, coming from a small family. Being part of a large celebration like my wedding to GR was an entirely new experience. The atmosphere was vibrant, alive with music, laughter, and the chatter of GR's expansive family. With over 220 people in attendance, it felt surreal to be in such a huge gathering. It was a wonderful chance to reconnect with relatives, enjoy delicious food, and embrace the festive spirit. However, that joyous night took an unexpected turn, transforming what should have been a celebration into something uncomfortable. Just as I was starting to enjoy myself, my mother-in-law, Karen, made her presence known. She seemed intent on belittling me, fueled by her unfounded belief that I couldn't have children. Little did she know, her assumptions were completely off base. Disclosing the truth about my struggles was the last thing I felt equipped to do at that moment. My journey to motherhood had been fraught with medical appointments, emotional turmoil, and shattered dreams. As if that weren't enough, Karen, who should have been a source of support, repeatedly teased me about my supposed inability to conceive. Approaching me at the party, she said, "Barbara, dear, still no news on the baby front? You might want to pick up the pace. Time is running out. Oh, are you infertile? What a pity. I wish my son had married someone who could actually have kids." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I was stunned by her audacity and rudeness, my cheeks flushing with shock. I could only stammer in response. "Excuse me, could you say that again? The music is quite loud. I didn't quite catch that." To my dismay, Karen crossed a line by commandeering the microphone from the DJ. Suddenly, all eyes were on her, and dread washed over me as I braced for what was to come. "May I have your attention, everyone?" she called out, her voice echoing across the room. My heart sank as I sensed the impending disaster. "Some of you may know Barbara, GR's wife. I hadn't intended to do this, but I see it as a learning opportunity, not just for her, but for all of us. After all, we're one big family, right?" My husband, GR, sensing the shift, began pushing through the crowd toward the DJ booth. He knew his mother wouldn't say anything kind about me, but he was still too far away to intervene. "Look at Barbara. It's surprising she isn't expecting a baby after 8 years of marriage to GR, but it's not her fault. I assume she's struggling with fertility issues." "Mom, that's enough." GR's voice rose in protest, but it was barely a whisper compared to the booming microphone. Karen pressed on, undeterred. "GR, this is an opportunity for growth. Barbara, I know facing the truth can be hard, but it's necessary. The reality is you're dealing with infertility, and it's affecting our time together. We're not getting any younger, and I'm eager for grandchildren. Maybe it's time for you two to consider options like surrogacy or even a different path altogether, like divorce." My face burned with embarrassment, a sea of eyes fixed on me, as if I were on display. All I wanted was for the ground to swallow me whole. The weight of shame pressed down on me, overwhelming and suffocating. Thankfully, GR finally reached her side, putting an end to the public spectacle. I stood frozen, feeling as if I were trapped in a moment of icy shock, desperately wishing for escape as I absorbed the stares of nearly 250 people around me. Despite GR's attempt to intervene, the damage was done. Some guests looked at me with disdain, while others offered sympathetic glances. Yet a significant number seemed to revel in my humiliation, as if experiencing it alongside me. As someone who shies away from pity, This was the most unsettling emotion to face. A profound sense of powerlessness washed over me. I had always been outspoken, but now I found myself mute in front of this judging audience. The DJ tried to revive the festive atmosphere and downplay the awkward situation, but the harm had already been inflicted. While some returned to their conversations, I sensed the undercurrent of gossip beginning to swirl. I swiftly withdrew, overwhelmed by a feeling of being unwelcome and unvalued. The sight of GR and Karen locked in a heated discussion only intensified my desire to escape. Seeking refuge, I retreated to the nearest bathroom, where I broke down in tears that felt endless. Then came a gentle knock on the door, shattering my moment of solitude. It was GR, concern etched on his face. His reaction to my tear-streaked cheeks took me by surprise. After today, I'm cutting ties with that woman, he declared firmly. But GR, she's your mother, I protested. True, but she's also a bully. You don't deserve that. We can leave right now if you want. I'm here for you. No, that would mean giving in. What did you say to her? He asked, recounting how he had confronted her about her disrespectful remarks, questioning why she would humiliate me in front of our guests. I still can't believe she said those things, I murmured. I know, my love, I've let her control you for too long, and I'm sorry it had to get this far. As we embraced, my tears continued to flow, a testament to the depth of my feelings for him. Growing up, I had learned to be tough and hide my emotions, but GR was always there to catch my tears and help me feel better. Pulling back slightly, I looked into his warm brown eyes, a reminder of how much I cared for him. Even with tears streaming down my face, I managed a small smile, attempting to mask my embarrassment. Remember how we first met? I asked. GR chuckled. Of course, how could I forget that day? We both laughed, reminiscing about the time we argued over the last plug in the university library, which led to a heartfelt conversation that brought us closer together. We exchanged numbers, and the rest, as they say, is history. I love you so much, GR, I said, my voice filled with sincerity. I adore you, Barbara, more than anything. If you want to leave this dull party ruined by my mother's foolishness, just say the word. GR reflected on the difficult news we had received. His nod conveyed the weight of the moment. We were putting in so much effort, and I thought I might be the one unable to have kids. Learning that it was you facing infertility was even harder for me. I was ready to take on that challenge, but you're just so incredible. I never expected it to be you. I never wished that for you. I'm truly sorry. I understand, darling. It was a tough time for both of us, but we got through it together, and we'll overcome this too. GR smiled at me, love shining in his eyes. It struck me then how we were a team, ready to face whatever life threw our way. You should be honest with her, he suggested. What? I can't do that. I should have been truthful with the family from the start. I had no idea she harbored this much resentment about us not having kids yet, and to make it worse, she automatically blames you. If I had been honest from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Don't be too hard on yourself, GR. You know how irrational your mother can be. Even if you had told her the truth, she would have found another way to embarrass me. It's okay, love. I don't mind if she dislikes me, but I can't bear the thought of her disapproving of you because of your infertility. You know how fixated she is on continuing the family line. It's ridiculous, really. She invited an astonishing 220 people to this event. That seems quite excessive. No, I won't agree to this. Just stay here for a moment. Before I could ask where he was going, he loosened his grip and stepped out of the bathroom. Still reeling from the embarrassment, I decided to heed his advice and remain where I was. After what felt like an eternity, 16 minutes, my worry deepened. Had GR made a foolish move, like revealing our family name or exposing himself to the gathering? Just as those thoughts crept in, he returned. Thank goodness, I was about to rush out to stop you, I said, relief washing over me. You might want to try, but I won't let you, he replied, a mysterious glint in his eyes. What do you mean? What have you done? I was taken aback when GR handed me a stack of papers. What are these? I asked, my heart sinking. My infertility results and your high fertility results. I printed them out in the library. My stomach churned. How could he have taken such a step without discussing it with me? And now he expected me to confront Karen with these documents? I couldn't shame him like that. I can't, GR. I made it clear I wouldn't do this. I can't just show these to her. But Barbara, She humiliated you in front of everyone. She deserves a reality check. She should feel embarrassed for being so wrong. I understand, but I just can't. It wouldn't be fair to you. I don't care about that. She's the one who should be embarrassed. Being unable to have children is nothing to be ashamed of. While society may look down on it, there are ways to address it, and I'm ready to face those challenges. We should explore different paths to starting a family. I looked up at him, touched by his unwavering support. How could he be so willing to put himself on the line like this? It had been a sensitive issue for us, but in that moment, as I gazed into his caring eyes, I felt the warmth of healing and personal growth that had led him to this understanding. But it's not just about that, it's also that she's never respected me. She hasn't tried to understand my struggles, and now she ridicules my infertility as if it's something. He pulled me closer, wrapping his arm around me. I know, Barbara, that's why we need to take a stand. We won't tolerate this any longer. Looking up at I felt grateful for his strength. Okay, let's do it. We stepped outside to face the crowd. Thankfully, it seemed like everyone had resumed their celebrations, unaware that more chaos was brewing. I shared a final reassuring look with and he nodded, leading me toward the DJ booth where I had faced humiliation moments earlier. Taking the microphone, commanded attention. Listen up, everyone, we have something important to share. Once again, all eyes turned toward him. Earlier today, my wife was unfairly and rudely attacked for no good reason. Now she wants to share her side of the story. He passed the mic to me, and I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze. Scanning the crowd, I locked eyes with Karen, who glared at me with disdain as she approached the booth. Hello, as you may know, I'm GR's wife, and Karen is my mother-in-law. I won't repeat the hurtful words spoken about me, but it's time to set the record straight. That's enough, Karen interjected, stepping closer. Unfazed, my confidence surged. You will not interrupt me. I gave you a chance to speak, and now it's my turn. Taken aback by my defiance, Karen fell silent. I pressed on. I'm tired of her constant rudeness stifling my growth and self-worth. GR was right. I need to put her in her place. As I was saying, I won't repeat the falsehoods, but I value truth. If misinformation about my family is being spread, even if it's private, I need to correct it. Turning to Karen directly, I declared, you think I'm unable to conceive, but here's the real truth. GR is the one with fertility issues. I handed her the documents, and the crowd erupted in murmurs and gasps. I quickly glanced at GR. Not only was he holding up well, but he was also smiling and laughing at the shocked expressions surrounding us. The most entertaining reaction came from my mother-in-law. A heavy silence descended over the room, capturing everyone's attention, while Karen's face went pale, as if I'd just delivered a stunning blow. What are you saying? This can't be true, she exclaimed. Indeed, it is true, and just to clarify, I happen to have a high fertility rate, I announced. Gasps and whispers rippled through the gathering, creating a moment that felt straight out of a movie. Hesitating, Karen turned to GR. I'm at a loss for words. Why didn't you tell me this? Perhaps because I wasn't ready. Infertility is a delicate topic, and I wouldn't have expected you to handle it well if our roles were reversed, GR explained. But airing my wife's private matters in front of everyone didn't sit right with me. I felt it was necessary to set the record straight. I'm truly sorry, GR, Karen said, genuine regret creeping into her voice. Save your apologies for Barbara, not me, GR shot back, taking the microphone from my hands. He started chanting, apologize, over and over again. Gradually, the crowd joined in, urging Karen to admit her wrongdoing. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, she held her ground, disdain etched on her face. I won't do it. She doesn't deserve an apology. If I was wrong about the fertility issue, why didn't she just speak up? It's her fault for not clearing things earlier, and now she wants to publicly embarrass me. The crowd began to jeer, turning against her like an audience booing a bad performance. Humiliated in her own home, Karen hurried inside, desperate to escape the scrutiny. But that wasn't the end of the story. While the celebration continued, Karen stayed locked in her room. Despite several attempts by aunts and uncles to coax her out, she clung to her pride, leaving a bitter taste in everyone's mouths. Meanwhile, the rest of the family mingled, some close relatives praising our courage, while others didn't fully grasp the extent of her negativity. The night ended on a note of unity. capturing the spirit of a family reunion despite the earlier drama. The following day, GR received a call from one of his aunts, who informed us that the family had decided to exclude Karen from future gatherings until she apologized. They also suggested keeping some distance until she matured and took responsibility. I wholeheartedly supported that decision. I had no interest in enduring her hurtful comments again. The family's choice didn't surprise me, given Karen's obstinate nature. However, it was shocking to realize our family had officially split because of her unwavering animosity towards me. GR and I agreed it was time to move on. We couldn't continue to tolerate Karen's toxic behavior. Protecting our mental well-being was crucial, especially as we aspired to build our own family without regrets. We sent Karen a farewell email, sharing our feelings, and GR left her a voice message expressing his desire for her presence in our lives but firmly rejecting toxicity. As expected, she never replied, and we've had no word from her since. Clearly, her pride mattered more to her than a connection with future grandchildren. Goodbye to toxic relationships. As they say, we were better off without her. Yet, deep down, a twinge of sadness lingered, particularly for GR. After all, Karen was still his mother. I had envisioned a close bond in the future, but that seemed increasingly unlikely. I didn't know what her situation was now, and frankly, I didn't care. What I did know was that I would always remember that day, and I wouldn't let anyone undermine my self-worth again. Hi, I'm Denise, and I want to share a story about how my mother-in-law's true colors were revealed, and how I stood up to her. So, when are you getting that inheritance, Denise? I heard it's around $50 million. Just think about the incredible life we could live with that money. This is taking forever. Since the day I married Joe, his mother, Mary, never stopped bringing up my supposed inheritance. I had casually mentioned my plans for the future, never expecting it to turn into such an obsession for her. At first, she was friendly, but her endless questions soon became tiresome. Joe and his father, Michael, tried to get her to stop, telling her the money wasn't her concern and that we were already living comfortably. But Mary wouldn't let it go. She was determined the money would elevate our lifestyle, suggesting we sell the house and buy a mansion. I hinted that the inheritance might not even be real, which caused some chuckles from everyone except Mary. She stared at me with a look of pure disdain. After that, she changed completely. She became cold, rude, and insulted me at every opportunity. I suspected she was furious with me for not living up to her greedy expectations, but I had no idea what lengths she would go to. When Mary discovered I wasn't some wealthy heiress, but an ordinary middle-class woman, she lost it, and 2 months later, she did something I never imagined. It was a quiet day, with Joe and Michael away on a fishing trip. I was in the middle of working on my laptop when Mary, wearing a nasty expression, approached me in the kitchen. She demanded I follow her to her room immediately, saying it was urgent. I asked her why, but she brushed off my questions, insisting I come with her. I had no idea what she wanted, but something in the back of my mind told me it wasn't good. I reluctantly followed her upstairs. Once inside her room, she locked the door behind us and pocketed the keys. Stunned, I asked her what she was doing. Mary calmly explained that she wasn't letting me leave until I signed some papers. Confused, I asked what papers she was talking about. That's when she revealed a postnuptial agreement, drawn up by a lawyer, that she wanted me to sign. It stated that in the event of a divorce, I wouldn't be entitled to any of Joe's assets. I was speechless. I refused to sign, telling her that Joe and I weren't planning on divorcing. Well, Denise, she sneered, we'll see about that. For now, do me a favor and sign these papers. Take your time reading them, but it won't change a thing. I'm not letting you out until it's done. I took the papers and quickly glanced through them. My anger boiled over as I saw the terms. Neither Joe nor I would be entitled to each other's assets or alimony in case of a divorce. I confronted her. Mary, what is this? Joe and I never talked about a prenup or postnup. Why now? Mary didn't hesitate. Because things have changed. I expected you to inherit $50 million, so a prenup seemed pointless back then. But now that I know that's not happening, I'm not going to let my son be financially tied to someone like you. Sign this postnup, and I'll make sure Joe leaves you. I was stunned. So, all this time, you only cared about my money. Now that you know it's not real, you want me to give up my rights to Joe's assets? How are you going to convince him to go along with this? I'll come up with something, Mary said coldly. I can't let my son stay married to someone without money. He needs a wealthy wife, so our family can live in luxury. I didn't raise him for years just to have him marry a financial burden. I stood firm. Joe doesn't care that I don't have a massive inheritance. Mary, you're the only one who does. Well, I care, Denise. I care if you don't have a substantial inheritance. I let my son marry you because I thought you'd contribute to a better life for us. Now it seems like you'll ruin everything by making him support you. Hearing Mary's cold words filled me with anger, but I also felt relieved. If I hadn't revealed the truth about the inheritance, I would have never seen just how manipulative she really was. Now I understood why Joe and Michael were always cautious around her. She was driven by greed and self-interest. I doubted Joe even knew about this post-nuptial agreement she wanted me to sign, but I could tell she wasn't letting me leave without my signature. To keep calm, I reluctantly said, I don't want to sign a post-nup. Mary, I have to protect myself too. If Joe really wants one, we'll talk about it with lawyers. I'm not signing anything you've put together without discussing it. Her face hardened. Listen, Denise, I'm not letting you out of here until you sign these papers. I can wait all day. Joe and Michael won't be back for hours, and I know your boss is calling you to get back to work. Feeling cornered, I finally gave in, saying, give me the key. I need to get back to work. This is enough. Mary's response was violent. She grabbed my hand, twisting it painfully, and began yelling about me being a gold-digging witch. My anxiety spiked as my phone rang incessantly. My boss trying to reach me. Overwhelmed, I signed the papers just to get out of there. Mary, smug and satisfied, unlocked the door and let me leave. I rushed to my room, locked myself in, and immediately called my boss to explain the nightmare I'd just gone through. She was horrified and told me to take time off if I needed it. After the encounter, I documented the bruise forming on my wrist, taking pictures as evidence. The longer I stared at it, the more enraged I became. Mary had crossed a line, and I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. Still, I decided not to ruin Joe and Michael's fishing trip by calling them right away. Instead, I waited for them to return. When they came back the next day, they were in good spirits, oblivious to the tension that had built up between Mary and me. Joe quickly noticed something was wrong. When he asked about it, I told him I needed time to process things. Mary, seizing her chance, immediately called Joe into the other room to discuss the post-nup. Not 2 minutes later, Joe came storming back downstairs, furious. What the hell are these papers? Dad, did you know about this? Michael, confused, replied, what papers? I have no idea what you're talking about. It's a post-nup Mom made for Denise and me. It's absurd. Joe shot a glare at Mary. What's going on here? Mary, unfazed, defended herself. I'm protecting you, Joe. Denise lied to us all about her inheritance, and now she's going to drain you dry. She's a gold digger. You need to sign the post-nup, divorce her, and find someone who'll actually contribute to this family. Joe's face was a mix of disbelief and anger. What are you talking about, Mom? Denise doesn't need to have a massive inheritance for us to be happy. What does her money have to do with anything? She's just like the women I've seen before. Mary insisted. She'll hurt you, Joe, and leave you broke. You need to protect yourself and get out of this marriage before it's too late. Joe exploded with rage. How could you say that? Denise is my wife. You've gone too far. Mom, this is insane. Michael backed him up, berating Mary for her behavior. It was the first time I'd ever seen Joe truly stand up to her, and it left me stunned. After the shouting match, Joe turned to me, still reeling. Why did you sign the post-nup, Denise? You should have waited for me to come back. I would have never let this happen. Why didn't you tell me? I sighed, knowing the truth had to come out. Joe, I didn't want to sign it. I knew you wouldn't ask for something like this, but Mary wouldn't let me leave. She locked me in her room and wouldn't release me until I signed. She even grabbed my hand when I tried to refuse. Joe looked at me with disbelief, then pure anger, realizing just how far his mother had gone. I had no choice. I was forced to sign. As I explained what had happened, Joe and Michael listened in stunned silence. What unsettled them even more was that Mary didn't bother denying it. She looked almost smug, as if proud of what she'd done. My husband and father-in-law's faces darkened with fury. At first, they could barely believe it, until I revealed the marks on my arm. That's when they both turned on Mary. Mom, what have you done? How could you lay a hand on Denise? This is assault. Look at her arm. What made you think this was even remotely okay? Joe demanded, his voice trembling with anger. Why are you two attacking me? Mary shot back indignantly. I did what I had to for my son. I couldn't just stand by and let her take advantage of him. I was only looking out for his best interests. Joe shook his head in disbelief. Are you seriously saying you hurt my wife for my sake? How could you be so cold? Just because Denise isn't inheriting some fortune doesn't mean I'd ever leave her. I didn't marry her for money. But you promised us a better life. Joe, Mary retorted sharply. You said we'd be comfortable. How's that supposed to happen if you don't marry someone wealthy? Michael stepped in, his voice calmer but just as firm. Mary, what's gotten into you? Joe and Denise have done so much for all of us. Isn't that enough? Why are you so fixated on money? Mary crossed her arms, defiant. Because we can do better. Joe could easily marry someone rich with his position, and then we'd all be living the life we deserve. The tension exploded. Joe and Michael erupted at Mary, their voices rising in a heated argument. Realizing she was outnumbered and cornered, Mary quickly shifted tactics. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she began sobbing, playing the victim. I'm the bad guy now, am I? I was only trying to secure a future for all of us. You should be thanking me, and by the way, this house is as much mine as it is yours. Joe cut her off, his tone icy. You've got it all wrong, Mom. We're not freeloading here. Denise moved in to take care of everyone, and we're covering all the expenses. But don't worry, Denise and I will move out within 2 months, and we're done supporting you financially. Michael nodded in agreement. I'll be moving with them too. I can't stay here with someone who treats Denise like this. Mary's face twisted with disbelief. You'll struggle out there. You think you can make it without me? You'll come crawling back when you realize how hard it is financially. Joe stood tall, eyes unwavering. We'll be just fine, and Dad is welcome to come with us. We'll take care of him, but we're done with your greed. As Mary began to protest, Joe raised her hand to silence her. And you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but you need to hear it. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. Mary, there's no need for you to stress about our future. We're more than capable of taking care of ourselves. Mary sneered. Oh, really? With what? Your job? Don't make me laugh. Without my house, you'd have nothing. You're just a gold digger with no real means. I smiled, my words measured. Actually, that's not true. I'm quite well off. I have about $50 million in assets, though not all of it is liquid cash. Mary's jaw dropped. What are you talking about? You said there was no inheritance. Were you lying to us? I shrugged lightly. I didn't lie. I just didn't see the point in telling you everything. Frankly, your obsession with my finances got tiresome, so I teased you a little. I never imagined it would expose your true colors. Mary stood there, speechless, trying to process my words. Even Joe and Michael exchanged glances, caught off guard by my revelation. After a few moments, Mary forced a smile, her voice high-pitched and strained. Oh, Denise, you little trickster, I can't believe you were joking about that. You really had me going. If I'd known, none of this would have happened. But her forced laugh didn't fool anyone. We all knew that the damage was done. Mary, if I had revealed it was a joke earlier, you wouldn't have made that post, would you? You wouldn't have tried to sabotage my marriage. I suppose I got carried away. Denise, she admitted, her voice shaky. I shouldn't have been so harsh. I didn't even give you a chance to explain. That was incredibly rude of me. Look, I've torn up the post. It's done, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. No, Mary, you don't need to concern yourself with my inheritance any longer. I have no intention of maintaining any relationship with you. If Joe agrees to us moving out and cutting ties, then I'm all in. Denise, we've made our decision. Mom's behavior has shown how greedy she is, and I won't let her take advantage of you. We're moving out this month, and that's final. Dad is coming with us. Mary found herself cornered. We were all resolute about leaving. Joe and I had already begun looking for houses and found 3 options about an hour away. Within a month, we closed the deal and prepared to move in. Buying a house and relocating in that time frame was easy given our financial situation. Michael also decided to join us. He wanted our support as he navigated his divorce from Mary, which he had initiated that same month. Despite Mary's desperate pleas for forgiveness and tears over her predicament, we remained firm in our decision. Though she owned a house, she had no income and couldn't claim alimony since Michael relied on Joe for financial support. Neither of them qualified for it. In an ironic twist, Michael ended up with half ownership of Mary's house, as it was acquired during their marriage. This meant Mary had to sell the house since she couldn't afford to buy him out. It was oddly satisfying to watch her lose her claim to an inheritance while trying to take mine. The divorce process stretched over a year. With the judge ordering a separation, Mary struggled financially, selling the house quickly to support herself. She faced challenges finding a job, landing her in a tough situation. Once the divorce was finalized and Michael received his share, he moved into a small apartment to give us some space. Even after he left, we continued to provide him with financial support, simply because we could. I'm Ashley, 30 years old, and this is the story of how I became entangled in a web of deceit and betrayal. Yet, it's also a testament to my strength, overcoming manipulation and injustice, and securing my own sense of justice against both my husband and mother-in-law. I met Donald, my husband, a man who seemed full of charm and charisma, captivated by his loving words and promises of a blissful future. We fell in love quickly and got married, convinced that our love could weather any storm. But I could never have foreseen the dark turn our life together would take, or that the source of my deepest anguish would be his mother, Helen. From the beginning, Helen resented me, seeing me as an intruder in her son's life. She was the type of woman who would need psychological analysis to truly understand the depth of her issues, as her behavior spiraled into something toxic and unmanageable. For 6 long years, Donald funneled his entire salary to Helen, leaving our finances in tatters. The betrayal was devastating. And despite my constant pleas for him to stop, Donald always brushed me aside, insisting his mother came first. When we married, I was only 22, a naive young woman who believed that love would eventually open Donald's eyes. I now see how wrong I was. Fear kept me silent, unable to stand up to either him or Helen. They were a united front, their arrogance and selfishness a force of destruction that took me years to fully grasp. As time passed, the tension between Helen and me only worsened. At every opportunity, she belittled me, making it painfully clear that I was an outsider in her world. She treated me as though I should be grateful just to exist in her presence. Despite the emotional and verbal abuse, whenever I tried to speak to Donald about it, he would dismiss my concerns. His indifference hurt almost as much as the abuse itself. The real blow came when Donald lost his job. Helen wasted no time in evicting me from the house, coldly asserting that it belonged to her. Even though Donald and I had lived there, her actions crushed me, leaving me homeless and bewildered by the sheer malice of her behavior. When I asked how she could be so heartless, she smiled and said, "It's not about hate, darling, I just don't care about you. Donald can't support you anymore, and this house, it's always been mine." I was stunned. Helen's disdain was clearer than ever. When I tried to confront her, she laughed at my outrage, reminding me that I had no right to anything anymore. I left, vowing to tell Donald everything, hoping he'd finally see the truth. But when I called him, desperate for help, his response shattered me. "What's happening?" he asked, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing around us. I explained everything: Helen's eviction, the financial sacrifices I'd made, and the years of silent suffering I endured in the hope that he would change. But he still didn't get it. "If you keep talking about my mother like that," Donald snapped, "I'm not only going to keep sending her money, but you'll also need to drop this ridiculous delusion. She's my mother. I don't care what she did, and it's her house." "Are you serious?" I could barely believe what I was hearing. "You heard me. Pack your things and leave my mother's house." I felt like I was living in a nightmare. How could the man I married, the man I loved, speak to me like this? Was this some twisted version of love where defending your wife was optional? I returned to the house in silence. Helen was waiting, a smug look on her face, delighted by my impending departure. I bit my tongue, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I quietly packed my things, resisting every urge to lash out. My heart was heavy with grief, anger, and confusion. What kind of mother-in-law would treat her daughter-in-law with such cruelty? I sought refuge with a friend, nursing my emotional wounds and piecing my life back together. But as the days passed, my sorrow turned into a fierce resolve. I couldn't let this injustice stand. Helen's actions couldn't go unanswered, and neither could Donald's betrayal. They would both face the consequences of what they had done. My friend was adamant that I couldn't let Helen's actions go unpunished. Her insistence fueled the fire inside me, pushing me to confront Helen once again. I found myself standing outside her house, my heart pounding with a mixture of nerves and resolve. This time, I wasn't just here to express my anger, I was here to make sure Helen faced the consequences of her cruelty. Stepping inside, a wave of memories flooded over me. This house, which had been the setting of so much pain and manipulation, would soon become a place of reckoning, a symbol of my strength. Helen appeared, her expression a mask of cold disdain. "What are you doing here, Ashley? You have no right to be in my house." "Oh, I think you'll find that I do," I replied, my voice steady. "Your actions brought me back here." She looked taken aback, clearly expecting me to remain silent and defeated. But Helen had miscalculated. She had no idea that I had finally found my voice. "You think you can just barge in here and take whatever you want? You're nothing but a parasite," she sneered. "No, Helen, I'm done playing the role you cast me in. I'm not the same person you could easily manipulate. I've grown stronger, and I'm here to claim what's rightfully mine. This house was built with my husband's money, our money, and now, it's time for me to take control." Helen's eyes narrowed. "You really think you can outsmart me? I've been manipulating people my whole life. You don't stand a chance. Maybe manipulation is your game, but I've learned a thing or two. You underestimated me, and that was your biggest mistake. Today, the tables have turned. I'm not backing down." The air between us grew tense, heavy with the weight of everything left unsaid over the years. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a battle of wills, a fight for my dignity, my future. Helen crossed her arms, her voice dripping with malice. "You may have won this round, Ashley, but don't think this is over. I'll make sure you regret this." "We'll see," I said calmly. "I've lived under your shadow for too long, endured your abuse, but today I'm taking back my life. Your reign ends here. Have the day you think you deserve." With that, I turned and walked out of the house, leaving Helen standing there, speechless. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. I had confronted my tormentor, faced down the source of so much suffering, and I hadn't crumbled. I was walking away with my head held high, free from her control. As I left, I noticed something that piqued my curiosity. 2 contractors were nailing a bright red auction sign to the front porch of Helen's house. I stopped, surprised. Was she really selling the house so suddenly? Why? Helen wasn't one to let go of her grip easily. Given her history of shady dealings, this move seemed suspicious. Concerned that she was trying to cover her tracks, I went straight to my friend and told her what I'd seen. She agreed. Something didn't sit right. A quick investigation confirmed my fears. The house was indeed being auctioned off the very next day. The timing was too convenient. It seemed Helen was scrambling, and I needed to act fast. The following morning, I came across the auction notice for Helen's house, a twist of fate that gave me the perfect chance to turn the tables. With new determination, I set my mind on a plan to stop the auction and expose whatever scheme Helen had up her sleeve. I was no longer just reacting to her cruelty. I was taking control of my future. I meticulously crafted my plan, diving deep into the housing market and calculating my maximum bid. I was ready to confront Helen. Little did she know that I had risen from the ashes of adversity, stronger and more resolute than ever. As I entered the auction room, my heart raced with a blend of nervousness and determination. But before I could fully step inside, I was confronted by the very people who had made my life miserable for the past 6 years. "What are you doing here? Are you obsessed with this place?" one of them scoffed. "I told you to stay away from me. I'm still very upset with you," another added. "Funny, because the feeling is mutual," I shot back, prompting gasps from both. "I have just as much right to be here as anyone else. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the authorities after I file a harassment report." "Do you really think you can win this house? That's a bit ambitious, don't you think?" "Should I evict her, Mom?" "No need, she's just trying to make a spectacle of herself. It's clear she can't afford to be here." "We'll see about that." With that, we drifted to our designated spots, Helen casting me a scornful glance as I composed myself, determined to blend into the crowd. As the auction began, I locked eyes with Helen, defiance and triumph shining through. The room buzzed with anticipation, all eyes fixed on the stage where the prized house would soon be up for bid. Standing there, I felt a rush of adrenaline as the auctioneer started. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an exceptional property today, a stunning mid-century modern house with a rich history. Let the bidding begin." Playing my cards close to my chest, I discreetly leaked information about Helen's rumored embezzlement, casting doubt on the property's worth. Prospective buyers hesitated, wary of the risks involved. It was my moment to make a move. We have an opening bid of $310,000. Any higher offers? Silence hung in the air. Not a single paddle was raised. Why isn't anyone bidding more? This is my house, Helen exclaimed, frustration boiling over. It seems your secrets have finally caught up with you, Helen. No one wants to risk their money on a property with such questionable history, I replied, savoring her growing panic. Her face flushed with rage as she realized she was losing control. I saw a flicker of vulnerability beneath her previously confident facade. Carol, we need to talk. This isn't fair, Donald pleaded, stepping forward. Save your apologies, Donald. It's too late. You had 6 years to stand up for me and prioritize our happiness. Now it's my turn to take charge. And you, Helen, your reign of terror ends here. This house will symbolize my victory, a reminder that I won't be silenced or dismissed any longer. I raised my paddle, and the auctioneer called for bids at $420,000. No one responded. Okay, we'll stick with $310,000, he declared, going once, twice, and sold. In an instant, a house worth over $1 million was mine for just $310,000. I could hardly believe it. Disappointed attendees shuffled toward the exit, stunned by the unexpected turn of events, especially after hearing the rumors of embezzlement. Helen's expression twisted into a mixture of rage and disbelief. Desperate to regain control, she lashed out, insisting the house was worthless and claiming I'd soon regret my decision. I met her gaze calmly. Don't worry about me, Helen. I have plans, and this house is just a stepping stone toward a brighter future. Regrets are for those who've lost everything, much like you. With that, I turned away, leaving her seething in fury while Donald tried futilely to console her, a chaotic emotional storm playing out behind me. The taste of victory exceeded my wildest dreams. As I walked away, a wave of liberation washed over me, breaking the chains of manipulation that had held me for so long. Donald, filled with remorse and desperation, approached me, but I stood my ground, resolute against his empty promises. Donald, it's over. I refuse to be a pawn in this toxic game any longer. We're done. Once I settle into my new home, the divorce papers will be on their way. But where will we live? He asked, panic creeping into his voice. Your concerns should shift to the embezzlement allegations because, at this rate, both you and your mother might end up in jail. Carol, please think this through, he pleaded. It's too late. The deed is done. Enjoy your life, Donald, and tell your mother that anger doesn't suit her. In the background, Helen continued to scream, consumed by rage. I relished every moment. Despite her attempts to dismiss the embezzlement claims, her image had already been tarnished by her emotional outburst during the auction. People viewed her as unhinged, pushing them further away from her. With my head held high, I walked away from the crumbling remnants of my past. The confrontation had marked a pivotal turning point in my life. In that moment of newfound clarity and strength, I embraced the challenges ahead with unwavering resilience. While revenge had sparked my journey, it was the pursuit of self-empowerment and happiness that truly guided me forward. The aftermath of my revenge left an indelible mark on all our lives. As the highest bidder, I now owned Helen's house, the very place from which she had cast me out. Though this victory carried a hint of bitterness, it stood as a powerful symbol of my perseverance and resilience. I channeled my energy into building a new life, one where I held the reins of my destiny. I launched a modest business specializing in handmade crochet clothing, pouring creativity into every intricate stitch. Word spread quickly, and my venture flourished as the community warmly embraced my creations. Your unwavering love and support were instrumental in my business's success. With growth came new aspirations for additional properties, and the once dilapidated apartment that had housed Helen and Donald became a constant reminder of their downfall. They were ostracized in the community, their trust eroded. Despite Donald's occasional pleas for leniency on behalf of Helen, I remained steadfast. As Carol, I marveled at how everything had unraveled, a direct result of her mother's selfish and greedy actions. She should have defended me years ago, standing up against her mother's transgressions. Their lives spiraled downward in a cascade of consequences, crashing with an intensity that echoed the repercussions of their betrayal in every facet. They teetered on the brink of a trial that promised to expose their deceit, drawing unwanted attention. The weight of their actions pressed heavily upon them, leaving behind a lingering emptiness and growing frustration. Then one day, Helen herself reached out, having lost everything and pleading for help. The consequences of her choices had finally caught up with her. I made it clear that my true motivation was not merely revenge, but seeking justice and reclaiming my power. The community rallied behind me, offering support and admiration for my resilience, which attracted even more customers. Through this success, I discovered a deeper understanding of my strength and determination. The closure I had longed for was finally within reach. As I surveyed the properties I now owned, I realized that while revenge had propelled me forward, it was perseverance and resilience that brought genuine fulfillment. Although my past had shaped me, it no longer defined my identity. Each passing day allowed me to appreciate the beauty of my ongoing journey, gradually leaving the shadows of betrayal behind. Hello, I'm Angela, and I'd like to share my journey, which has been shaped by the challenges I've faced with my in-laws and husband. As I navigate the process of divorce, I believe my experiences may resonate with anyone dealing with unwarranted criticism from in-laws. My husband, Dylan, and I first connected on a dating site. At the time, I was a 21-year-old college student, while Dylan was 27 and well-established in his career. Despite our age difference, we fell in love, and I never judged him for his age. Unfortunately, Dylan struggled with insecurities about our relationship, often questioning why I chose him over someone closer to my age. "I don't get it, Angela. I'm much older than you. You could find someone better," he would say. I would respond firmly, "Sure, I could, but I don't want to. I love you for who you are." Yet, he remained unconvinced, revealing deep-seated issues with self-esteem and doubting the authenticity of my feelings. In an effort to reassure him, I consistently demonstrated my love. I refused to let him spend money on me. Despite my own financial independence as a college student, I worked part-time jobs, treated him to gifts, and always paid for my own meals. However, my efforts seemed futile as his insecurities persisted, and he struggled to accept my love. For the first 3 years, I couldn't grasp why he held such a negative view of himself until I met his parents. Dylan's father, William, was a hard worker who had once won the lottery, dramatically changing their lives. They bought an expensive house and secured their future, but with this newfound wealth came an air of superiority. During our first meeting, William boasted, "Not everyone can make it big like me. I worked hard, and winning the lottery on my first try is no small feat. Dylan graduated, but he'll never have the kind of money we do." Before the lottery, he struggled to get a girlfriend. Most of them were just after my money. His comments were infuriating and belittling, especially the insinuation that I was just another gold digger. Listening to William and Shirley's disparaging remarks about Dylan was humiliating. Over time, these comments began to affect him, feeding into his insecurities. It was painful to see him internalize their judgments. Feeling the need to defend both Dylan and myself, I politely disagreed, pointing out his hard work and potential for future success. Yet the conversation spiraled negatively when someone suggested that women were only interested in Dylan for his wealth. I clarified that our finances were shared, emphasizing that my love for him was genuine and not financially motivated. In an attempt to lighten the mood, I acknowledged that it can be tough to accept others' successes and material comforts, but my frustration with William and Shirley's comments continued to grow. Dylan, aware of the tension, remained silent, allowing the negativity to linger. Afterward, I confronted him about his parents' behavior, expressing my disappointment in his lack of defense. He explained that he had faced exploitation from people looking to take advantage of his money in the past. He argued that just because some women were gold diggers didn't mean I was one too. He also pointed out that my lack of parental support made our situation appear unusual, implying that I relied solely on his inheritance. "Dylan, what you're saying doesn't make sense. I've never asked you for money, and my financial situation doesn't mean I'm after your wealth," I insisted. Despite my attempts to make him see my perspective, he continued to dismiss my concerns, reiterating his love for me. While many might find comfort in that, it troubled me. I didn't want him to view me in a negative light. I suggested couples therapy, hoping it would help him confront his insecurities, but he insisted he was fine. Frustrated, I eventually distanced myself from his family. As time passed, we decided to get married shortly after I graduated from college. My job wasn't high-paying, but I managed to save enough for our wedding, We shared the costs equally and exchanged vows when I was 24. However, the next 4 years proved to be challenging. Dylan frequently visited his parents, and he always returned in a sour mood. Despite my encouragement for him to limit his interactions with them, he remained unresponsive, allowing their mocking remarks to linger in his mind. After years of trying to prove my love, everything came to a head on Dylan's birthday. We had a small celebration at home, and I surprised him with a beautiful watch he had been coveting. While he was thrilled with the gift, my happiness quickly faded when he insisted on showing it off at his parents' house. Once we arrived, Dylan eagerly approached Shirley and William, proudly displaying the watch. "Mom, Dad, look at this gorgeous watch Angela got me. I've wanted it for so long. Isn't it beautiful?" "Oh, did she notice the resemblance between you two? Love can be confusing," Shirley sneered. "We were a bit worried for a while." "Just be careful, William. She's probably only interested in your money. She married our son because of that $350,000 house." "Let's not forget the facts," William added. "Exactly," Shirley chimed in. "I almost forgot that the house is the only reason Angela married Dylan." I felt a wave of anger rise within me. "Excuse me, why do you think I married your son? For your house? You were living in an apartment after working for 5 years. Plus, Dylan is much older than me. Why else would I marry him unless I wanted something from him? I'm sure your house was an attraction, if not his money. I chose to be with your son because I love him. Whatever you think about my intentions, Dylan knows the truth, and he'll back me up. Isn't that right, Dylan?" To my shock, Dylan remained silent, his gaze fixed on the ground, avoiding eye contact. My heart sank as I realized he wasn't defending me. "Why the silence?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Your parents have always believed I'm a gold digger. How can they understand who I am if you don't set the record straight? Why are you quiet? Let them know they have the wrong idea." Angela, I'm not sure what you want me to say. I can't confirm if my parents are mistaken. There's a chance you might be interested in this house." "Are you serious, Dylan? Do you really think I married you for your possessions? That's so unfair to assume, and it's concerning that you never considered buying a house. We never talked about it. If you're renting, shouldn't getting a house be a top priority?" "Of course, but it's also about your priorities, and you chose not to commit to a home. You know our house comes with a hefty price tag, well beyond your financial reach, even with your best efforts. Instead, you decided to marry Dylan and build a life here, and that choice seems more rational to me." "Angela, why would you choose to marry me?" Dylan's words struck me like a bolt of lightning. "While I know you care for me, it feels like there's a deeper motive behind your love." His revelation left me speechless. All the love I had for him suddenly felt worthless. It seemed that both my in-laws and even Dylan now viewed me as someone solely interested in his wealth. While their reactions stung, it was Dylan's response that truly devastated me. In that moment, I made a life-altering decision: would file for divorce. I chose to keep my intentions to myself, waiting for the right moment. After we returned home, I contacted a lawyer to initiate the proceedings. The lawyer assured me the necessary documents would be ready within a week. During this time, I moved into a separate room, and Dylan assumed I was simply venting my frustrations, unaware of the impending change. When the divorce papers arrived at my parents' house, I packed my belongings and prepared to leave. Dylan called in a panic, and I instructed him to come to a specific address, my parents' home, which he had never visited before, along with my in-laws. He seemed confused but agreed. As they arrived, I waited for them on the porch, and their expressions revealed their astonishment at the house. With a smile, I said, "I bet you're wondering why I brought you here. It's a stunning house, isn't it? No one can compare their home to this. It must cost a fortune, easily in the millions. This mansion is valued at around $3.5 million today. Quite pricey, but worth every penny, especially with the luxurious furnishings. Angela, what's the story behind this place? I can't understand how you have access to such an extravagant home," William asked, bewildered. "Come on in, it's a bit much to explain everything on the porch. By the way, what did you mean by your?" I brushed off the question as I walked inside, with them trailing behind. Once indoors, their amazement grew. It was clear that the homeowners had spared no expense. After we settled down, I took a deep breath and said, I've called you here for a reason. I've filed for divorce, and here are the papers. We can pursue an uncontested divorce if you're willing. Their expressions turned puzzled. Why are you filing for divorce? One of them asked. Because you and your family believe I'm a gold digger, aiming for your house. That's not true, but you won't listen, Dylan protested. To spare us from your so-called gold digging, you're choosing to divorce me? That's ridiculous. I see this as a positive step, Dylan. If you think so little of me, you should sign the papers. You deserve to find someone who truly loves you. Turning to his parents, I added, why did you bring us to this house? Are you expecting me to include it in the divorce settlement? Their surprise was palpable. Why would I want to buy this house when it's already mine? I declared confidently. Shock and disbelief washed over them, as if my words had detonated in their minds. Dylan frowned. How on earth can you afford a house like this? You're just renting, and your job isn't good enough to cover this. Don't lie to us. Dylan, let me clarify. I didn't lie. Remember when I mentioned my parents left me an inheritance? This house is part of it and is currently held in a trust. But here's the catch, I won't receive it until I turn 33. I don't have a typical job because I have a trust fund waiting for me. Impossible. Your parents passed away years ago. Why didn't they give you the house earlier? My parents were concerned about people taking advantage of me. They advised me to keep quiet about the house and the trust fund. Everything is secured in a trust until I turn 33. I want someone who genuinely cares about me, not just for what I might inherit. Wow, Angela, it's surprising to learn about your wealth. We had no idea. This house is massive. We could all enjoy a comfortable life here. It would have been helpful if you'd shared this earlier, we were worried you might have hidden motives. Clear communication could have prevented all these misunderstandings. I always believed Angela was the right match for Dylan. I've been saying she's an incredible person. Now that we see her wealth, it's evident Dylan found an excellent partner. Their perception of me shifted so quickly that it felt like a whirlwind. Yet, what struck me as peculiar was how they seemed to overlook the fact that I had initiated divorce proceedings. I pulled out the signed divorce papers and said, as I mentioned, here's my signature for an uncontested divorce. You can sign these to make it easy. If you want to contest it, we can go to court. I won't continue living with you, Angela. Please understand there's no need to rush this. You've shown you're not motivated by money. There's no longer a valid reason for a divorce. We can even apologize for any misunderstandings. That would improve everything, wouldn't it? Yes, William is right. We're sorry, Angela. We wrongly questioned your intentions. Dylan, your apologies don't feel sincere to me. For the past 3 years, your family has criticized me, accusing me of wanting your wealth. I hoped you would stand by me, but instead, you joined them in labeling me. I can't stay with someone who disrespects their spouse. I've made my decision to end our relationship. We can part on good terms, or we can go through legal proceedings, the choice is yours. Dylan, Shirley, and William made earnest attempts to persuade me to move past the hurt, pleading for my forgiveness. To them, it was merely a minor misunderstanding. Yet, not once did they acknowledge or apologize for the damage they had done to my reputation. When I finally reached my breaking point, I demanded they leave, threatening to involve law enforcement if they didn't. My anger clearly intimidated them. In the weeks that followed, Dylan and my in-laws persisted in their efforts to win me back. They begged, offered incentives, and hoped for a change of heart on my part. Their actions suggested they believed I was solely motivated by money, which only fueled my resentment. Ironically, as a co-owner of the house, I was entitled to half of it, which heightened their desperation for reconciliation. Despite their relentless attempts, I remained resolute in my decision. I moved my belongings to my parents' house, fully aware of my entitlement to half of Dylan's share. My determination remained unshaken, even though I had not yet officially claimed ownership of the house. Dylan and his family continued to reach out, pushing me to reconsider until I finally changed my phone number to escape their persistent communication. Dylan even showed up at my workplace, but security quickly intervened and asked him to leave, as I had no interest in engaging with him. Nearly a year has passed since I filed for divorce, and I'm nearing the end of the process. Regardless of Dylan's objections, the courts will make the final decision. I'm doing well on my own, content and financially secure. I even go on casual dates, keeping things light and uncomplicated. Dylan's cousin mentioned the difficulties he faced in trying to buy out my rightful share, as Dylan actively promotes the sale of the house, harboring resentment toward his parents for the chaos in his life. Honestly, I no longer care. My only goal is to free myself from that toxic familial connection.